This podcast is brought to you by our Patreon supporters. If you'd like to help expand our programming, head to patreon.com/talkstarwars and become a TSW patron. You'll receive exclusive podcasts, access to a VIP Facebook group, monthly prize draws, Facebook Live sessions, and much, much more. Head to patreon.com/talkstarwars and become a TSW patron today, and the Force will be with you always. This is Talk Star Wars, the official podcast at talkstarwars.co.uk. Hello everyone, welcome back to Talk Star Wars. I'm Mark.
I am Stephen with a V and an N.
I am Rob.
I'm Brian, and so is my wife.
I feel responsible for that.
Sorry. And I'm Paul.
That is good. We were just talking about Monty Python.
Yeah, there is that. Yeah.
Segues.
Or Monty's Python.
They didn't have segways. That would have been cool, wouldn't it? That time of year. You know, that in those days, they had segways.
That would have been
There goes
surreal.
more fireworks. There's some sort of firework thing going on, apparently,
It's the celebration. It's
in the next room.
Celebration.
It is.
We hate fireworks, they kill animals, don't we, Mark?
Yeah, and Poppy's sitting under
One thing
my...
Mark and I agree on.
She's sitting under my desk all curled up, terrified. They do look pretty, but she is scared. So if you do hear some crying, that will be me. All right, let's get into our thank you section this evening. So we want to say thank you to Jay Winkworth for becoming a patron this week. Jay came back to the fold after leaving the VIP program just before we kicked Patreon off. So he's back. Good to have him back in that group as well. On the subject of the Patreon program, last week I put out the main show on a Saturday for the patrons instead, and then it went to iTunes on the Monday. Thinking I'm going to put that in as a perk. As soon as we hit 200 patrons, I'm going to make that a weekly thing to release the main show early. And then every 200 patrons we get, I'm going to do a live call-in show. But yeah, 200, as soon as we get there, they will get the show on a Saturday and the main show will go out on iTunes on a Monday. I think that'd be pretty cool.
What is a Patreon? I've heard of Patreon. Is it a one-off kind of donation thing, or do they have to do...
it's a recurring thing.
Yes,
it's a free. You're free to do it for as long as you want, basically.
Cool. And it's replaced the VIP program.
Yes, it's replaced the VIP. It's improved the VIP program.
Yeah, because it gets it helps me get the content out.
Much better. Yeah.
And I know we've hammered this home a few times, but and I'm making assumptions here, Mark, but I doubt very much if you're even breaking even yet. It's not. I don't want people thinking, it's a big money-making thing.
No, it's
for
not.
Love, isn't it?
It's definitely not a big...
When we say we need to get to 200 patrons, I think that's the clue people look for to gauge something success or failure. Not even failure, just success or less success.
Where we are at the moment is we have an overhead that's not insignificant for both Talk Star Wars and the Commonwealth. And the money that we're generating through things like the Patreon campaign is helping us sort of address that overhead in a way, and they have other revenue streams that help out along the way there. So it does help, and it helps things like Rob. You and the guys went up to Echo Live at the weekend, didn't you? So we were able to sort of cover some of the overhead there and get some banners and things done for the day. It's that kind of stuff, really. But the goal of our Patreon campaign is to try and get enough people on board so we can sort of expand our programming, generate more content. It's more than just covering the overhead, then it's pushing things a little bit further. So all the details are at patreon.com/Talk Star Wars. You go check that out. It's I'm enjoying it, and I think a lot of people are pleased with the way it's restructured what we're doing. Yeah, well, you're one of the people that now benefits from getting that content in an RSS feed to your podcatcher, aren't you, Rob?
Yeah, because I was previously obviously everything we had before through the VIP program was done through the website, and I'm not able always to access the website to listen to stuff. And also, obviously, when you have a podcatcher like an iTunes or a whatever on your computer, you can make use of things like media keys, so you can you can pause it and restart it more easily and more conveniently than if it's just content on the web page. So for me, it's certainly been an improvement.
Yeah, and that's just,
and people like me.
You get the
they don't like me.
You get the daily podcast straight into your podcatcher app, and that's the iTunes app as well. And you get things like priority release shows, like our monthly shows. They come out on a Monday evening, the week before they hit the main feed. So it's, benefits all around, really. Okay, next section, reviews. We don't have any reviews this week. We had a couple last week. We don't have any this week. But if you did want to take advantage of what we call our Ron Burgundy policy, it means you can leave us a 5-star review and we will read it. Whatever you write in there, we will read verbatim. So if you want to promote something like a podcast or a blog, that's where to do it. There's only one rule. Keep it clean. So hopefully we'll get some new reviews next week. Right, we're going to move into listener comms. So last week we put out our Last Jedi trailer breakdown. And these next couple of comments are items that we got from the YouTube channel. So we had a comment from Diego Odi via YouTube who says, "You're awesome. I've been waiting for this one. You touched on so many things. Here, I'd like to just mention Rey's parents' dispute. I'm on board for them being no ones, but if this is the case, I think it'd be a little bit controversial. I mean, Rey's parents were one of the most relevant of JJ's mystery boxes, and if they turn out to be just a couple of peasants from Tatooine, this means JJ had no idea who they were whilst shooting The Force Awakens, and that would be so embarrassing." Do you think it would be... do you think that's the situation, that JJ just didn't have a clue what was going on when he made that movie in terms of Rey's parentage?
Don't all speak at once.
Pass.
Can you ask Rob?
No, in general terms.
Oh, sorry, I thought you said Rob.
No.
Okay. Well, no, let's be honest, JJ's known for being a man of mystery, end of. So he often...
He's even a mystery to himself.
Yeah, but he'll pursue a path with no result on the end.
There's a strong possibility he also deliberately left it open to change because he knew he was only the first part of a trilogy. So if he cemented it too far, he'd actually cause people grief down the line when they come to retconning stuff, or they might have ended up having to retcon things, or it would have steered their writing. If he wants to keep people free to take the story however they please, that he has to leave as many threads open as possible.
Yeah, so deliberately left that open for people to develop the story after him.
And to speculate wildly, which is what we obviously made a significant amount of
material
activity and content from. Yeah. Yeah,
Steve,
not just us, obviously. There's a whole industry around it.
This is practically a sport now. Steve,
well,
JJ know what he's doing? Did he know what he was doing when he was creating Rey? Or has he deliberately left it open-ended?
I hope he did, and I hope it's all part of the plan. Otherwise, it loses a bit of its cohesion if it's off the cuff and done on the spur of the moment. But I've got a horrible feeling that he thought he'd only ever be in one film, directing one film, and he thought, leave that to someone else.
Yeah.
So I'd like to think he did. It'd be cool if he did, and it was all planned ahead, because one of the things Star Wars has always been sadly lacking in is kind of retconning. It's always retcon stuff, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it'd be cool if it was intentional.
Okay, so you think it would be cool if he had planned out who Rey's parents were? We just haven't seen it yet, and maybe that's something that's being passed along through the story group. Like, this is where you need to, whatever you are as a writer, this is where you need to go.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Don't forget though, the production team have got a bank of writers the size of Texas. Somebody would have picked this up. So, in all honesty, there probably is a resolution.
Yeah,
coming.
Yeah, entirely
some
possible.
kind. Otherwise, you've got other things like the Force vision. If you're going to go into a scene as intricate as that for Rey, giving numerous branches of all sorts of direction, the number one pulling her, number two pushing her, and so on and so forth, then the idea of this is one, a couple of pinnacle scenes, repetition of pinnacle scenes, if you like, that little girl looking at the ship leave. You can't just leave that open ended, really. So
you can.
No, you can't.
Yes, you can. You absolutely can. The whole thing of the trailer, the whole thing of the trilogy, the theme could be her kind of letting go of her past and embracing her future as a part of a grander scheme in the galaxy. So it's entirely possible that they're just, they could always. I'm not saying it would be a good thing, but they could go down the route of never even answering that question at all.
An enigma.
Yeah, I would prefer they answer it, even if it is just to say, just a couple of jobbers from.
It would be far more. Well, look at Anakin. You never found out who the
it's just left to speculation, isn't it?
There's a story in the news section a bit later on that I think that will probably cover some of this speculation about the open-ended nature of Anakin's story or Anakin's origin, and perhaps it will speak a little bit to the Rey's parentage subject as well. So I'll fire on that one until we get down to the end, because there's in the episode 9 section there's a little bit about that. So we had another comment. Thank you, Diego. We had a comment from Aunt Vesuvi, who's been a real supporter of us for a long time now, always commenting, even if it's just something simple like this, simply reaching out to say thank you. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Paul. And thanks to Stephen, with an N, Steve, for your understandably brief appearance. So
I'm doing well.
People understood why you dropped out of last week's episode. They got
I did feel like a bit of a gimp, but I'm glad
There's a reason for that.
Honestly, I've seen that. Sorry, Rob.
Which bit of the gimp did you feel?
The bit with the hole. I've seen that image of the starship with the windows about 100 times now, and I've been so close to clicking on it, but I haven't. You know what I mean, right?
Yeah, I think you could probably watch the trailer and get away with it, Steve. I don't think there's too much in there.
Yeah, but I'm doing so well now.
Yeah.
Are you?
Yeah. When I see the film, it'd be annoying if none of that stuff's in the film.
But to be fair, this is what sort of heavily speculated, is it's all misdirect again.
I think there's plenty of misdirect, but
yeah, for sure.
I mean, there was a reveal this week. We're waiting until we get into The Last Jedi so that we don't spoil anything. That pretty much proved that we nailed something last week about the final scene in the trailer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's a bit of that, but it's there is some misdirect in there, intentional, but I don't think there's going to be any footage in this that doesn't make the final cut, because the film's locked. So that I think they're pulling on footage that's in there, with Rogue One.
Unless they deliberately filmed bits in this trailer for a trailer.
So. It doesn't feel like that to me.
Did they have locked? Was The Force Awakens locked when they did the trailers? Because there were bits in those trailers that didn't make it into the film.
No, it wasn't. There was a bit of a restructure there as well, wasn't there? Especially around the lightsaber. So when those first couple of trailers come out, they were still sort of tinkering with the structure, because they had 6 months down whilst Harrison Ford healed from his injury, getting trapped in that door on the Falcon. So there was some time down there as well.
I've got a question from someone at work quickly. It's only like a very brief question from a girl called Stephanie Warehouse. She says,
"Is that a real person?"
Yeah,
that's
Stephanie
not made up
with
name.
With an N. Stephanie Warehouse says, "How would you guys feel if next year, for episode, or the year after next, for episode 9, if there were no trailers at all? Would it mean that you didn't, or you'd be less likely to see the film, or would it make it more exciting? Love the show, especially Stephen with a V and an N.
Wouldn't have much to talk about."
But how do you feel about it? Would
clearly
it
Stephanie's
make you
a
more
mental.
Exciting, more anticipation?
No, I think it might cause budget problems.
I was being asked a question. What was the question? Sorry, I missed the question. What was the question? So I got someone who's asking.
How would you guys feel if with episode 9 there were no trailers, maybe some images, but it was all kept very hush hush? Would it make the anticipation more? Would you be more excited, or would you feel let down?
I think I don't know. I'd actually be kind of geared up for that. I mean, let's be fair, we'd be seeing it regardless, so we don't need a trailer.
It would never happen. So it's an interesting thought experiment, but there is no way on earth it would ever happen.
It would be unprecedented, wouldn't it?
Trailers are not for us, they're for the casuals.
Pitching a product.
True. Yeah.
So I guess that's the question, Paul, and the crux of it. Do they need to pitch it for Star Wars?
To
would
the
it
casual
be even
fan,
more exciting because there was no trailer? It'd be an enigma wrapped in a secret and coated in a enigmatic.
Having said that, I don't know that they'd necessarily need to do that much to sell it. So maybe they could get away with just a.
Well, this one's case in point, isn't it, Rob? This movie, they've been so reserved with what they've done so far.
Yeah, really, really have. Yeah, so actually, maybe they wouldn't need to do that much. They could just have a static image with the title on it. Yeah. And then just fade to black. And we'd be like, I'm seeing that.
When you say reserved, what do you mean? We've had numerous imagery and posters and...
Just two trailers.
I mean, and going alongside that, I know it's more a bit of an internal thing, but, the Star Wars Celebration in itself is still a pitching push situation. So they're not holding back that much.
If you compare...
Paul's right. When you say two trailers, sorry, Rob. When you say two trailers, Mark, that's that in itself. I mean, when we were young, you never got two trailers. Sometimes you never saw a trailer.
The first one's barely a trailer. It's you
get your teaser,
trailer.
You usually get 5.
Like crazy.
There should be 5 with every movie.
I don't know. I've got a feeling Paul's kind of with me on this, but don't you think that's overkill?
5.
5 is.
I mean, one teaser would do me.
One trailer 5 minutes long.
One trailer 2 hours long.
One trailer 2 hours and 19 minutes long, please, with end credits.
Is that how long episode 8 is, by the way?
It'll be about that, yeah. It has not been announced yet. It's the we're waiting for it to go before the boards and get certified.
Is there any way of finding the advertising budget for a movie like this?
No, they won't.
They usually might report it to the news outlets, but that's about it.
Yeah, then that won't be a true representation of what they're spending.
100 mil or something, yeah.
I mean, that's crazy, isn't it? 100 million on advertising.
No,
that's
probably the production budget.
If you factor in things like manufacturing costs for merchandise and stuff as well, then it's going to go even higher.
You know what? You could not do any of that. None of these trailers and spend $1 million and just erect a statue of a Jedi in, I don't know, Times Square or Leicester Square and just leave it there all year.
And
that would generate enough publicity.
Yeah.
I think there's so much tradition in filmmaking that no one breaks away anymore.
You put 80-80. You could make Stonehenge into an 80-80.
Yeah.
Yes, nice one, Rob.
It's a paradigm that works, Steve, so they're not going to move too far from it. I mean, it has changed. The economics of it have changed over the years. Even George said that if you make a film like Star Wars, you need to spend practically the production budget again on promotion, and even then it has to be one of the top 10 highest grossing films to make its money back. So it's almost like there isn't much of a margin in it for a film. Obviously, The Force Awakens was an outstanding example of getting it right in terms of the box office. That's why you have so many ancillary revenue streams around these things, like the merchandising and licensing, is because that's where the money comes from.
Yeah. Avatar only had one trailer.
Always kills the conversation, doesn't it?
Number one grossing movie, hardly not a great deal of merchandise, no merchandising, one trailer.
Do you really want to go through this again, Steve? How many times has Avatar been in the cinemas in different forms? Let's move on. So we got another comment on YouTube from Lampshadius. It says, "You guys enjoying the AT-M6 in the trailer makes me think of the screwball saying walkers on a planet equals Hoth equals Empire rehash, like The Force Awakens was a New Hope rehash. Obviously, as we heard 1,000,000 times, there are some legitimate complaints and concerns and fears about what is to come, but some things like similar vehicles is stupid. So what you made me think of is how to refute that complaint. Imagine people complaining about a Dunkirk movie and saying that the uniforms and ships are just like that in Saving Private Ryan or whatever World War II movie. Imagine someone who likes a modern recruiting propaganda military movie with jet fighters. Why isn't it a rehash of Top Gun or similar 1980s fighters still in service today? Similar to the last ones. It's a rehash of Top Gun. Mid-East war propaganda movie is similar to the Desert Fox World War II movies because they both have tanks in the desert. What do people want? There are already 4-legged droid walkers and 6-legged Republic walkers, etc. The only way it can be a rehash of Empire is if they use Japanese giant robot mecha. Fast and Furious movies are rehashes of each other because they all have fast, cool, modern cars. and they drive fast and crazy in them. Episode 8 is a rehash of Episode 5 because they both have walking armoured transports attacking a base on a plane. That's it, not plane as an airplane, but plane as in, you get it. The analogy was to add both similar vehicles and what they do with them. Why wouldn't you do similar things with similar things? I never saw Fast and Furious, but of course they have cars doing fancy movie car stuff. What matters is the story and the characters' challenges being different in each, and not then there's people who don't care, just having fun watching cars chases and sci-fi action battles. World War II movies have similar same vehicles because they are all about World War II. Duh. A Korean, a Vietnam, and modern war movie will have similar vehicles to World War II movies doing similar things because there's only so many ways to do it, like fly or drive over rough terrain. No one complains that these aren't tanks with square wheels in the movies, and even that wouldn't be enough to break the comparison to say similar walkers attacking equals a rehash. No one complains about Shakespeare plays having the same things happen, betrayals, unrequited romances, etc. Well, I could have made this point a lot more powerful by being shorter, but whatever, I'll stop here. Thank you, Lampshadius.
Rob,
he makes good points.
Like that, but that guy should replace one of us on Star Wars.
He'll be replacing you, Steve. So let's not do that.
Replace me.
No.
He'd be better off with him.
No.
He makes good points.
He makes
one good point in there. The rest are hokum.
He changed my mind because I'm the sort of negative
not
that always goes on about
He's making good points. He may be taking it to the extreme, but what he's saying is just
he
because
rocks the mic like a dance floor.
Just because that's not what I'm saying. He's saying, but that just because he is saying that just because one thing in one film looks similar to another, don't make them the same thing.
It's a little different when they're based on historical events. So most of those examples are hokum.
Not really.
Boom.
Not really. Because
are you joking?
No, not at all.
They've got the same. So nobody's going to complain about the soldiers in Dunkirk having the same bloody uniforms as the soldiers in Saving Private Ryan because it's set during the same real war.
But that's what people.
Of course they're not going to come out.
If people apply the same logic as they do to the, if they're applying the same logic, if they're applying the same logic, they would say Saving Private Ryan and Dunkirk are remakes of each other.
Because in Star Wars they can go anywhere with this stuff because it's fantasy. They can do anything they want, and the complaints come from the fact that people see almost identical set pieces and almost identical settings in universes where these things could be completely different and nobody would bat an eyelid. So I totally get the complaints. What I don't get is why these things are remotely comparable.
Paul, what do you think?
Might drop.
I won't say something.
I'm going to mute while you guys carry on for a second. I need to cough.
Paul?
He's killing a puppy.
I don't know. I mean, I think there's not entirely a linear flow generally here. I mean, to be honest, in Star Wars, we're still dealing with two factions.
Mm-hmm.
Well, technically three factions. You know, the Empire became, First Order, etc., etc. So we're still dealing with the same kind of goody-baddie situation. And of course, occasionally the technology is going to be just not upgraded, replaced, molded, cloned, etc., etc. So yeah, you're going to see similarities on some things. When it comes to things like World War II movies, of course, all World War II movies look like all World War II movies because they're World War II movies and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't see the connection between things like Fast and Furious because that is blatantly a series about the same people doing the same thing, just driving on different streets, more or less.
Yeah,
right.
But
that's a franchise.
That is the argument he's making, though, right?
I know.
Go on.
Yeah.
That is the argument he's making, that no one says they're just remaking the same film over and over again.
I do.
Yes, they do. Are you joking? Do you not see people?
I've actually not seen these films because I know I'll be bored silly after 10 minutes. Yeah. It's the same thing I saw 1 minute ago.
Yeah. That's exactly what people say about those films. Are you kidding?
And then when we went to see Star Wars and Empire and Jedi, we saw things developing and growing and upgrading and so on, and you go with it. You grow with it. That's the thing. With those films, they have no movement at all. It's a complete...
They do, and the movement is fast and furious.
Yeah, it is fast and furious. Yeah. Who's in the name, mate?
That's the only movement there is.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. Whereas the others, they're organic in the way they grow with the characters, with various realms, ideals, tribes, animals, and so on and so forth, which makes it more interesting. But yes, I also believe as Rob said, in a galaxy-wide situation, the imagination could be pushed a little broader, without a doubt. TFA is a prime example from my opinion. So, yeah, I think there is not being funny in the trailer. You look at that initial scene, and of course, this photograph of Hoth hits you, but then you're like, blimey, look at the size of that walker. Oh, that could be different, etc., etc., etc. So there is an organic movement. Someone, they've been a little brave, not brave enough for my liking. But
in the final film, there also might be massive departures.
Yeah,
and I think there will be, but I think the element that runs nicely.
Hadn't we finished?
Sorry, Paul. Go on.
Do you remember
Everyone's
how
got a handbag? Oh, excuse my French. Beep alert.
Yeah,
he didn't mean it.
Thank you, Steve.
But that said, guys, do you remember how excited we all got in things like Attack of the Clones when the Imperial March started playing? The Stormtroopers started looking like Stormtroopers. At the ending, the Star Destroyers started looking like Star Destroyers, and you were like, "Oh my God, we come back!" And we actually did enjoy that recloning of going to where we were.
No, I did. That's not the reason. I enjoyed that, but not for the reason you've just described. I enjoyed it because I was sitting there thinking, and they have no idea that it's all gonna they're being basically they're being hoodwinked.
I'll be honest, I was in a John Williams moment.
Oh yeah, totally.
Can I say something?
Of course.
Yes, well done. Okay, moving on.
Right, from this, you've ruined the scene. I've now got a picture in my mind of guerrilla walkers walking across that plain, where I imagine those things have picked up the red dust they're heading towards them. So thanks for that. So
you knew that anyway,
at some point, I didn't know that.
It was in the first trailer.
Yeah, it was in the teaser.
I never saw any walkers in the first trailer.
You did.
We discussed it.
We discussed it. You were there.
I remember seeing the
Well,
ally, the rebel stuff, but I don't remember walkers. Or at least not close up.
That's right. Well, by next week, you'd have forgotten it again.
Yeah, I was going to say, if we didn't talk about stuff to allow for your memory, mate, we'd never have a show.
Right. Anyway, the point I'm making is, I do get what he's saying. I get what Rob's saying, and that yes, if they are going to do a total rehash of Empire and these rebel, I don't know, machines, planes, whatever you want to call them, fly up and they chuck a cable round and then they fall over.
Yeah, that would be daft.
That would be ridiculous.
Yeah.
But if they are walkers and the way they use the walkers, their technique is to line up in a line because it's the best way of doing it. They get the best fire cover. They stop people getting past. Then why not redo it?
That's fine.
Yeah.
So, if it's a what do they call that in the war when you call the way of doing something?
Formation.
The formation, technique, whatever you call it. But if it's done because they've sat there and they've said, "Oh, everyone loves that Hoth scene with the walkers. Let's do that again," then that would really pee me off.
I have another thought on this actually, and it ties into the legend stuff. Now I know that people who like the legends and who miss it are given a bit of a bad rep a bit of a bad time in fandom, and some of them deserve it, to be clear. But we've had the Disney buyout of Lucasfilm, at which point the canon was reset and everything became legends, and we were promised new movies. Now those legend stories, some of them were crap, right? And I'm under no illusion that some of them were not, all of them were gold, but they did tell different stories that took you to different places. And they had, they may have had the odd bit and piece here and there, like obviously they have lightsaber battles and stuff, but they did tell different stories, and they took you to different places and introduced different characters. What they've had instead is they've said, right, well, we're going to get rid of all that stuff and give you new movies, and then Episode 7 comes out and it's safe. Mm-hmm. So I can understand why people are annoyed about that, because we've been told we're going to get new, and then we don't get very new.
That's because they've
still got good.
They've got too broad an audience to appeal to, haven't they? They can't just hit the ground running again. They had to, like, Episode 7 was designed to remind everyone what Star Wars is.
I don't dispute
we've
that.
said soft reboot, and that's kind of the way that was.
I don't dispute that at all. I fully accept that they have their reasons for doing so, and I understand those reasons. What I'm saying is, for the people who grew up on those stories, for them, that's their Star Wars has been erased, or part of their Star Wars has been erased, and it's been replaced by stuff that they don't consider to be particularly imaginative. So I can understand why people are annoyed about that stuff. Now, admittedly, if they were to write it off based on the trailer, that's a bit of a tool move. And I'm quite happy to go along with Lampshadius on the idea that if you were to write it off based on the trailer, that is daft. And, to write it off based on the similar vehicles is daft. But let's be under no illusion that these things have been, they have form for this. They have form for playing it safe. And like I said, they have their reasons, but they have, demonstrable form for playing it safe. And I can understand people being apprehensive.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I think it's too soon to sort of level too many judgments at Lucasfilm because we've only had one saga movie.
Yeah.
The Rogue One was a massive departure from what they did with no opening crawl and what have you. And the only real recognisable character in there was the Vader, and we're all saying that they lent on Vader a little bit too much. He was too much of a crutch for that story, and it was like one step away from Star Wars. Solo looks like it's going to be
similar.
I was hoping it would have been 2 steps away, but it seems like they are playing it a little bit safer with this movie right now. But I think they've got a long-term plan. I think it is to start to get more daring and move away from what, you just can't stay in one space in time and tell stories. They're going to need to get a little bit bolder. And that might happen. That might start with The Last Jedi and taking our expectations and subverting them by doing something unusual with it. And the common thread in this business with the Empire, and like with the Death Star 2 popping up in Return of the Jedi, is the arrogance of the Empire, and now the arrogance of the First Order to think we'll just do it again but bigger. And,
that's nice in that respect. Those side of things
that's what they're
work.
doing, yeah. Because that's that would make sense, wouldn't it? And that's like Lampshadius puts in his comment, why wouldn't you do similar things with similar things? It almost worked. Why would you throw it out if it, like the Death Star almost worked? Why wouldn't they build another one and just consider the flaws this time round, And even though within the story that we've had, that served a different purpose, and that was a trap, wasn't it? As we all know. But why wouldn't they build another Death Star? They're extraordinarily arrogant. They just think, well, we'll just patch over that one flaw.
I think it worked.
And it'll work.
In the first trilogy, though, Mark, didn't it? When they built another Death Star, it was like they must have, you just accepted it because it obviously wasn't to draw people back into Star Wars. It made sense that they were going to build another one because they hated the fact that they had such an awesome weapon that it got destroyed.
Yeah, from what I just said, yeah.
Yeah, when they did it in The Force Awakens, though, it was like, it was obviously done a little different so that it looked a little different, but it just felt like they were everything about the film felt like a rehash of Episode 4. But going back to the point that Magic, I don't know,
Lampshadius
name was, and
swing and a miss.
When you think of how many scenes in Star Wars are exactly the same as that, the whole saga is replete with them. You've got the end of Episode 1 where all the ships are lining up with the robots. You've got Attack of the Clones where they're having the massive battle on the plane with the Death Star shaped thing he's taking off, and they're all lined up like that. You've got, obviously Hoth and a whole host of other scenes. The Wookiee planet where they're coming across the lake.
At this point, it sounds like you're just saying they're all the same because they all have things in them.
No, but I think if that didn't have walkers in it, then you wouldn't be making this, similarity. But I think I'm prepared to give it a chance to be different. If I come out of that film and it feels like a rehash of Empire, I'm not watching Episode 9.
Wow.
Because I'd have had enough of Star Wars, I think, by that point. And how do you feel, Paul? I'm leaning on Paul here because he's the closest ally I've got. If you came out feeling about this one as you did about 7, how would you feel?
I'm already a little cautious of 9 because of who's controlling it. But right now, I'm very, very excited about 8. And if it turns out to be a rehash of Empire, I'll be very disappointed from the aspect that it's a rehash. But as Empire's the best film, I might be slightly pleased at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true. Not a sweet disposition.
It's time for some imagination, and I'm hoping Mr. Johnson, Rian Johnson's the guy that's going to deliver it.
I'm fairly sure he has.
But it's cynical. It's probably even a little bit naive of me, but I'm already I mean, we've had news this week that we can count on him, and it's going to be going off in a new direction. But I'm already a little concerned of the appointment of number 9. So, but we'll see. We'll see. Will I go and see it? Probably, yes.
There's some episode 9 stuff later that deals with some of JJ's comments about where they're going with 9, which is quite exciting. So,
like Ewoks, he said.
He said, "Do you like
Jawas, man? Get the Jawas.
Small bears, what eat people?" Anyway, let's move on to listener comms because we're 34 minutes in and we haven't even got to listener comms.
That was really good.
Thank you, Magic.
I hope you don't think I was. I hope
whatever his name was.
I hope you don't think I was.
I need a big red candle.
Serious point. I hope you don't think I was too. I'm not having a go at you. Just so we're clear. I find that
he's arguing our point in a hyperbolic way. I think he's arguing.
Yeah, it's just the hyperbole is where I take umbrage because some of the examples are a bit tenuous.
It's hyperbole fighting hyperbole, I think you'll find.
All right.
All right. Katie has given us a question this week via Twitter. She says, "Hey guys, hope you're all well. It's that time again. In Rogue One, we saw Yavin 4 and Mustafar again. So my question is, what planets would you like to see again? Maybe in a sequel trilogy, another sequel trilogy, or in future films?"
Dagobah. We've said this before.
You'd like to see that again, yeah?
Oh, yeah. Well, we didn't see a lot of it. A bit of swamp, a bit of cave. That's it.
That's all that's there. I've read TripAdvisor.
Oh. What rating did it get?
It got a swampy cave rating.
It said reasonable atmosphere except for the ship in the water.
Yeah.
No reliable parking.
The grumpy little green guy wouldn't feed us.
Yeah, valet's rude.
Yeah. Very wet climate.
Talk backwards, they did.
Don't take any sun lotion. You won't need it.
Yeah, you won't.
Well, I mean, my choice is going to be popping up in Solo. So.
What's yours, Paul?
I'm a big Tatooine fan, so.
You reckon
that's coming in Solo?
Yeah.
Really? Okay, interesting.
That wouldn't surprise me because of the hearts.
Yeah. Why not, right? Yeah. But
that's right.
What did I say the film was going to be called?
It doesn't make you right about every single thing in the world. That's not how it works.
You said it
was
not how it
works. Otherwise, you guys would listen to me occasionally because of my one prediction about Rogue One.
Scratches his inner 5-bit in scene 12. You watch. And then he gives it a sniff.
If I'm sitting there watching it and he does that,
I'll
just
went south pretty quick.
Think of you, Paul.
Didn't it?
Yeah.
Rob, what planets would you like to see again?
I mean, I'm going to come across as a total hypocrite if I ask for things we've seen before after my little diatribe there. I would tell you what, actually, I would like to see what's become of Coruscant.
Oh, yeah, that would be good.
Since Palpatine's left office. Because obviously they moved to Hosnian Prime, right? So presumably they're not on Coruscant anymore. So I want to know why.
Did you see the Battlefront 2 trailer, the single player trailer?
I did. Looks pretty cool.
Was that Coruscant in that with a hell of a lot less lights? It looked
entirely
really
possible.
Underpopulated compared to what it was like in the prequels. That would be interesting actually to revisit that.
Yeah,
Alderaan would be cool.
Too soon. Too soon. I would like to see Tatooine, much like yourself, Paul, and I think we're going to get that in Last Jedi. Even if it is just in Luke's meditation sessions.
Oh, okay.
Because he,
you see that twin sons meditation vision thing being a thing, yeah?
Yeah, that's something that I don't know if that was in a concept painting, and it caught fire, and people are just sort of stuck with it, and it's been spoken about a bit.
That's dangerous.
That's where Luke goes when he's on his rock. That rock that we see Daisy sitting on. When she's meditating, lifting the pebbles, that is where Luke goes to meditate, and apparently we should see the twin sons. Now, that might have just been concept art for ideas that didn't actually get fleshed out, so I'm not banking on it, but I would love to see that. I think that would be really cool. Katie didn't leave
I just thought of
a suggestion for what she would like to see. Go on, Paul.
I want to see Bespin again.
Oh, that would be good, yeah. We might, because that nearly made it into Force Awakens.
Isn't it a gas giant, though?
Yeah, but Cloud City's not.
Yeah, the Cloud City.
Oh, you mean Cloud City? Right.
Yeah.
Chewbacca's a gas giant, allegedly.
The duel was reshot for TFA.
Force Awakens, yeah.
Didn't make the edit, so that would have been cool to see. And I guess we did kind of see part of it, and we saw the corridor. Yeah. Katie, you'll have to let us know what you wanted to see, what planet you'd like to go back to. I'd be interested to know.
Yes.
All right, let's move on to ads. Who wants to take ads question this week? Rob?
Yeah, I'll do it. No problem. So ads writes, right, a controversial question which concerns the age-old debate about how our dear Leia / Carrie could be handled in the next two films. Assuming that 8 was already in the can and left unchanged, imagine a scenario in 9 where Leia's ship comes under fire and sustains heavy damage, allowing it to be boarded by the First Order. A Snoke, Kylo, Hux, I think he's saying it can be anybody, takes Leia prisoner, and we see her being taken away, or even just that it's implied that she's been captured. The story then continues to its conclusion, whatever that may be, with Leia's outcome still unconfirmed. The story then the closing scene ends on a cliffhanger with Snoke alive and well, sat in his pristine throne room surrounded by trophies and splendor. And then the camera pans around, and on the wall as a decoration in Carbonite is Leia. Music. Credits. Does Dark end to the trilogy with 10, 11, 12 to conclude the story in time? Buy more time to decide how to deal, or leave it there for Leia? Does Leia have to be honoured with a happy ending as an alternative to a brave death or enforced exile? It also warrants consideration as to how this would be viewed by a Kylo or a Luke. Would they even know about it? Perhaps Kylo arranged this himself as a further connection to Vader, maybe a gift to Snoke. Perhaps it could only be a nod to the viewer alone and no one else. Love to hear your thoughts as always. Ads. So, do we think that Leia's fate lies in resin?
No.
Sorry,
I don't see it. No.
It's too reminiscent of somebody in a state of death. If that, without saying that with the greatest respect.
Yeah.
So you can't. But then, Steve, you write yourself into a corner there because they can't kill her off in any way because that's literally death.
Well, I mean, there's loads of reasons. I don't think that's a kind of hut thing to have trophies of people in Carbonite. I don't think Snoke's that worried about stuff like that.
Right.
And it leaves her kind of unfinished in any way.
Yeah.
And she's got to be. It's disrespectful to her character, I think, and Carrie Fisher to kind of leave her hanging on a wall.
It does It does beg to be resolved, that sort of thing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It does sort of ask you to go back and tie it up in a pleasant way. Or
you end up with like a Simpsons, Poochie died on the way back to his home planet kind of.
Unless that was always the plan. If the plan always was to have her, in Carbonara.
Sounds delicious.
Carbonara. Then fine, because then it's Carrie Fisher would want that, but I'm not sure if she'd want that unless it was predestined.
I don't get the impression there's a predestined path for the trilogy in terms of a really thoroughly fleshed out trilogy. I think there's probably some story beats and that's about it. So I don't see that as, I think Steve's right in that respect. I think
they had an idea, didn't they? Because Kathy was commenting earlier in the year that the next movie would have centered around Leia's character. So they had a general idea where they wanted to go with it.
Yeah. So that could be, Kylo takes her out in episode 8 and then he has to deal with the guilt and seeing her in the Force and all that stuff in 9. I say they can put her prominent in the movie without, even depicting her on screen. She can just be a powerful kind of a theme, or a prominent kind of background character.
I'm almost certain and we've spoken about it before, that she's going to end up as a Force ghost because it is the best way to both kill her character off and keep her in Star Wars forever. It's like perfect, isn't it? It reflects what she is in real life, which is no longer with us, but her life force and her spirit on Earth in our universe reflects her Force ghost in Star Wars. It's like perfect.
It does seem like a missed trick if they don't go down that route, to be honest. I'm with you on that one, Steve.
I did throw an idea out the other day in the Facebook group when this conversation was being had. There was something similar to this being floated around. And I did sort of suggest that one way I'd like to have it dealt with would be if we did lose the Leia character in the movies, and Luke made it right to the end. Have Luke return to sort of Octo and go up to his little meditation rock and start to see Tatooine and all that stuff I just said earlier. And then just in the background you hear Luke, and then he opens his eyes and says Leia, and it echoes that thing on Bespin where they connected through the Force. And if he'd lost her and then she manages to reconnect through him, it's a way, you know, like Qui-Gon managed to make that leap, even though he hadn't really, there hasn't been any sign of a Jedi doing that previously. Qui-Gon made that leap. She could make that leap without any training. And I think it would be a really interesting way to sort of wrap that character up. But again, it does leave, it is sort of tempting to say, we're going to come back to this later and flesh it out. And just leaving it hanging like that, I think, might be a little bit like dissatisfying. Paul?
Well, going back to the original query. I don't think it pays the movie any favors or pays the character any favors to do that. No, in a nutshell. Plus, it just becomes a yin yang of what happened to Han, and you know, you're just twisting the relationship on its head. And I don't think it would do the movement of the story any favors either. I mean, we've been here dozens of times already. But to be honest, Mark, I do like the idea of Luke sort of just gently strolling back into the cave on Ahch-To. Yeah. And just almost just saying, "Hi, Leia," and you just hear a voice. Nothing else. Don't have to see her, but he knows she's there, and he can feel her in every way, and so on and so forth. So you know, the bonding's still there. No, they're related, young man. So, but that in itself would be pretty cool, and you are still paying an enormous amount of respect to the character by doing that. So, and her doesn't have to be a Force ghost. It could just be a voice. I mean, remember Ben just hanging in the air in the X-wing as Luke's going down the trench? It was enough. That's all you needed. So it was enough, and they could do that. That's actually quite. I think
more powerful.
Good direction. Yeah, I don't like the idea of a ship just blowing up and losing and so on. I mean, but at the same time, I'm not scared of them throwing a little bit of reality in it. You know, things just happen. These things.
Yeah,
just happen. Exactly. So you've got to be prepared for that as well. And to be honest, as much as you don't want that, you take it on the chin and go, well, at least they're brave enough to go in that direction. So, you know.
John Boyega made comments recently as how she can continue off screen. The way the story's handled in 8 means she can continue off screen. I think he was referring to the character. It wasn't exactly clear, but it seemed to indicate that whatever decisions they've made or the way 8 wraps up is that Leia her story could be continuing through the remainder of this sequel trilogy without us seeing her again. I quite like that. It would that would really pay that
open. It's nice to know that she's still in the universe, wouldn't it? Oh, sorry. It'd be nice to know if she was still in the universe, the Star Wars universe, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Even if you didn't see her.
Which is where Rob's...
do you want me to tell you my dream?
Is it clean?
I had a dream. Yeah, I had a dream 2 nights ago. And I don't know why I had it. It was awesome.
Because you were asleep.
I never remember my dreams. Leia, Rey gives Luke the lightsaber, and she tells him about Han. And I was thinking in the dream about what I wanted from Star Wars with Luke. It was a really weird dream because I was like directing the dream. And Luke starts talking to Rey about when he was young. And I felt in my dream, a connection with how Luke is now at 60 or whatever. And it made me realize, that is the same Luke as when he was a kid. And he says to Rey, I remember when I first met Han, we were in a cantina and he was so full of himself. And he starts talking about that scene when they're negotiating the price to get them off the planet.
Right.
And it was awesome. And it didn't do a flashback, but it made you realise that Luke is the same Luke. And I think that's what they need in this movie.
I see what you mean.
He looks so different, and he's such a different character, even without really knowing what he said. You know he's going to be different.
So you're saying they just need to tie that character back to events that we recognise.
When he was young.
I think, Steve, if you go into this movie hoping for the same Luke, I really think you're going to be disappointed. Because I think it's going to be... No, I don't mean literally. What I mean is, I think I've been having more thoughts about this, and I really feel like there's going to be... We're not going to be prepared for what's going to happen, and we're going to be quite upset by it.
No, bugger.
Yeah.
Bugger me with a fish.
I might be wrong, though. It's been known.
I'll carry on directing it in my dreams.
Upset how?
It's difficult to go into with Steve here. But
yeah. Be careful,
I think there's something. Yeah, I think there's something.
All right. You're doing the podcast. Let me mute you for a second.
Well, no, hang on, Paul. You know the IMAX standee, right?
Yes.
Been seeing those. So obviously there's a presence.
Okay,
in a certain position, everybody's kind of like, "Ooh, does that mean what I think it means?" And I think no, it doesn't. But I do think it means we're going to learn of something that's going to really disappoint us, because we're going to be like, "Oh man, I can't believe they would do that."
Luke's on both sides, and I think you'll find
now. Who's worried about spoilers, Mark?
Steve's muted us.
He's muted us.
I don't know memory or very big brain at all anymore.
So why was I tiptoeing around it, Steve? Answer me that.
I was sitting there drinking my chamomile tea because I'm old and gay.
Other beverages are available for the discerning homosexual.
I have a feeling we may have moved off topic, so let's give it ads. Thank you very much for your question this week, sir. We've got a question from
not in a gay way.
Mark S. Steve, do you want to take this one?
Yeah. Hi, I have another question for you, smart gents. How is it Rey can understand Wookiee? I can only think of two good explanations. The first is that she does so using the Force and doesn't realise it. The second is that she was around one or more Wookiees when she was young. It seems very unlikely she would have encountered any Wookiees on Jakku, so it would likely have been in her life before Jakku. This leads me to the idea that she was Han and Leia's daughter, but Han seeming to not know her doesn't make a whole lot of sense if that was the case. Though Leia does hug Rey when they meet, I would think that there would be a big reunion moment if Rey was Leia's daughter. So, how can Rey understand Wookiee? Did she grow up around Chewie? That's a pretty good question. Why have we never brought this up?
We have.
Oh, I'll shut up then.
It's just that nobody likes my explanation.
Go on then.
Well, my unofficial, my non-canon explanation is that I think the writing around Rey is a little bit weak, and even something as simple as, you can understand that thing, yeah, can't you? Or how can you understand that thing? No idea. It would seed something for later on. Yeah, you can understand that thing, and they never resolve it.
Yeah, no, she can also understand.
I've never picked that up.
BB-8 as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I have heard somebody mentioned it to me. I can't remember who it was. It might have been Omer. I saw both Omer and Joe Crouchy Ain't No Slouch the other day, and I'm sure one of them told me that there was an explanation. It might have been in Forces of Destiny or one of the books, one of the sort of connected materials, that Jedi can understand most languages through the Force.
Right.
I don't know how much that holds
Luke
water.
can't he?
Well, I don't know actually. Does he?
Well, he understands 3PO.
He understands R2. 3PO kind of talks English, though.
R2 comes out in R2. Well, at least in the X-wing, comes out in Aurebesh on the screen in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
They get subtitles. So that's
but he talks to him on the surface of Dagobah and all sorts.
Yeah.
I
don't know.
He talks to him. It doesn't seem to be. He doesn't seem to get any information from R2.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
He talks to R2.
Go back and watch it again, but
I don't think there's any indication that he's taking. When he speaks to R2 in the X-wing, he's getting the translation, but that's possibly because the droid's out in the back and they're in a vacuum of space.
Or he's got a thick accent. I don't know.
Doesn't he understand Jawas as well when he's negotiating about the droids?
Yeah, but he's lived on. This is the other one I was coming to.
This is the Rey explanation as well, isn't it?
Yeah, so she's lived on Jakku, which is a trading post.
Exactly, it's Nema Outpost. It's Nema the Hutt's outpost, and it's like a thoroughfare for people coming and going. It'll be the same sort of people that frequent Mos Eisley and Mos Espa, so you can imagine that she's crossed paths with plenty of alien races over the years. Yeah, and it's a case of having to keep up to survive, isn't it, for her?
Yeah, for sure.
So it could be written off as, as part of the Mary Sue complaint that she's just good at everything because.
So that one's a little easier explained away. I think the Nema Outpost thing makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it's just because it's a hub for intergalactic sort of under the radar shady stuff, and she's just had to try and keep up in order to survive.
A hive of villainy.
Exactly.
Yeah, a wretched one.
There's plenty of examples of where the writing doesn't particularly help, but I think that, like I say, this one is more easily retconned. I think.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
And there you go.
Less
Yeah.
of a leap of faith required.
Great question, though, Mark. Really, really good question. I like the ones that we can sort of nail down to a reasonable
Maybe
explanation.
she's just a shaved Wookiee.
Yeah, all right. Paul's got a new Star Wars theory.
Yeah.
She's just a short shaved female Wookiee.
In the 70s, she'd have been a Wookiee, but in the modern times, she's had extensive waxing.
Do you think when they get to fourth base, they goes, "Oh, you are Wookiee"?
Right, let's move on awkwardly now to a question about a child. Adam Sheldon asks us, Millie Bobby Brown, the young actress from Stranger Things, one day being cast in a Leia movie. Heard this way back and again on Tumbling Saber recently, with Claudia Gray's recent book, which is a story centered around a younger Leia. Could we see Millie Bobby Brown portray Leia in a movie? What do you think, gentlemen?
If you're going to do it fast.
You have to.
Because she's a
Clock's
teenage
ticking.
girl, and teenagers, can start looking drastically different from how they look as teenagers within a couple of years. So if they're going to do it, it has to be soon.
Rob.
I
think one of them from Stranger Things, wasn't he? And he luckily he didn't age that much, but they age so quickly, don't they?
Yeah, but he's not playing Leia.
No, ideally not.
No.
The thing is now.
No, but I mean, kids in general, like you say, you've got to get them quick. And I'm
Carrie
not sure
was
that
19, right, in Star Wars.
Yeah.
And Millie Bobby Brown is about 13, I think. So there's not a lot of time to get a movie up on its feet to have her play Leia younger than Carrie played Leia.
Doesn't look enough like
movie.
her.
Do you not think?
She does.
I think
there's enough. She can pass for her, for sure.
There's an image out there. I think this conversation started because there's an image out there of her doing the pose. You know, the black and white pose with the buns looking straight into camera. Millie Bobby Brown did that. You might be able to find it if you Google it. She, I think, is a great fit because not only is she very similar looking with the dark eyes and what have you, but she is an extraordinary young actress. Really,
I haven't seen Stranger Things. I've heard nothing but good things.
Fantastic, Rob. Really good show. Yeah. Paul, what do you make of this, mate?
Well, I apologise. I haven't seen Stranger Things in about 24 years, and I only ever saw episode 1, which actually was quite cool. But I've been looking at her, and it's a pretty jolly good likeness.
Yes, that's a great.
And I've just sent you an even more interesting picture than just what the standard Leia in white that we all think of. I think that's a bit more interesting, to be honest.
That's pretty good.
But I'm going to put a complete down on it that I wouldn't have any interest in a Leia story.
No,
I'm afraid. No, Leia is a pinnacle support element that she's a pillar of support for the characters that run around her, sort of thing. I can't see her. I see. They could write it, but she's a fulcrum within the story. She's not the story, if that makes sense. The story's better for her.
What about using her like that, then, Paul? And
what's that?
I think that's what Paul's saying, is there'd be a disconnect and actually you'd find yourself going, I don't know why, but that didn't quite work as I thought.
And I don't think with a story like that, I don't know how you'd use where would her fulcrum be, and
so
on and
I
so
mean,
forth.
I mean,
they just find her
Millie Bobby Brown not as the central figure in a Star Wars movie,
maybe in a Rebels type thing.
Leia in something like that. Yeah, exactly.
I thought the question was having a Leia story, though.
Yes, yeah, but I'm
a Leia story. Well, okay.
I think it's more
taking your point and thinking it might be good to get Jimmy Smits back into the role as her father, but younger. And
it does say young Leia movie in the question, I suppose. So it's like it is kind of implied that it would be front and center of as the main character in that story, which I think Paul's probably right. It would be a bit jarring.
No,
I'd be willing to give it a chance if they did it, but I really think. What
about a House of Cards?
Just 2 out of 14.
What about a House of Cards style Netflix? Right? No, she's made positive sounds about this already, Steve.
Okay. Well, it's her prerogative, isn't it?
What about if you had a House of Cards style Netflix show about the Senate, just a short sort of 6 episodes, and she's in it, and
more politics on Star Wars. That'd be fantastic.
To be fair.
Yeah. Sorry. See, do you see how much of a killer politics is in Star Wars? I just
and podcasts.
The whole show. And
I'm good. I'm good with it. Never.
Please don't do House of Cards on Star Wars.
All
I
right.
don't think Mark literally means House of Cards.
No,
with Star
I know
Wars
what he means.
with blasters,
the
but-
one interesting thing could come from it is the fact if it's a young Leia. Now, the young Leia in the Death Star obviously was a bit kick-ass and she was fun and she took the head role and she actually showed the guys how to do things.
Yes.
But 2 hours of that, I'm not entirely sure.
Mate,
That's
you're
the
making a
thing.
good
When
point.
we see Leia generally in the movies, she's the calming influence. She's the talker. She's, like I say, she's the supporting mechanism that everybody relies on. Sort of thing. She's wife, mother, sister. All those kind of bits and pieces. I know it's a horrifically stereotyped.
I don't know if that's true entirely, though, Paul. I'm with you to the point where I think that a 2-hour movie of her maybe without anybody to play off might be a bit much, but I don't necessarily think she's not an action character certainly in like Jedi. The only reason they encounter the Ewoks at all is because she goes off and goes running after the stormtroopers when Luke's looking to do something a little bit more reserved.
She actually falls off a bike.
But how does she get on the bike, Paul? She goes running off. No, she goes running off. He goes after her.
True.
Watch it again.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I see them. Wait, Leia. She's gone running off to get a bike, and he jumps on the back.
Okay, so that's 2 instances. She does kill Jabba. Give her credit for that one.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, but what I'm saying is, she is front and center.
Spoilers.
I think Steve's seen that one.
Yeah, but he's forgotten the ending.
Oh, probably, yeah. But I mean, we can only do so much about that, Mark. But yeah, I do see. I do think you're right. Despite that, Paul, I think as a general thing, I think without anybody else to play off, they'd have to be very careful how they structured a Leia story if they wanted to do one. Otherwise, they run the risk of just...
If they do shape a story that maybe is directed at a different audience, you might be like the Young Leia novel, as I said earlier, I haven't had a chance to get through it yet, but it's something that might make for an interesting movie, but it isn't aimed at 40-something or 30-something blokes.
No.
So it could be that, if they are going to be a little bit more daring with the stories they're telling, they might shape something that's for a different audience.
Mm.
And then you're free.
Is the audience out there to justify the budget?
That is, that's probably why it's not happened yet, but who knows? Until
That's
they
like
make
the thing
it.
we saw, the meme we saw, the Aunt Beru movie. I'm sitting there thinking, well, actually, that's a really good idea.
What, when Luke's on the T1 Tango?
Yeah. No, not that bit.
Oh, not that bit.
After that, yeah.
Okay.
Is that a ship?
No.
Oh.
No, let's get Steve away from this subject.
This is from
it's a vessel.
Steve War.
We haven't got time, Steve.
Did Aunt Beru have a phantom pregnancy when they gave Luke to her and, and the milk came in?
No, they didn't. Moving on.
Anyway,
Rob, sorry.
One quick point on Millie Bobby Brown. You only have to look at one example within Star Wars of how actors can change drastically in the space of a decade, and his name, bless his heart, is Jake Lloyd. Because if you go on IMDb right now and search the word Pumpkinhead, bearing in mind there is a movie called Pumpkinhead 2, the first result is Jake Lloyd, bless him.
Oh, no.
There are exceptions to that, Rob. Harvey Joel Osment.
Haley Joel Osment.
No. Harvey Joel. Harvey.
You're making my point in a different example, Rob. Steve, as in... as in, he looks completely different now as well.
How do you know? How many films of his have you seen, Rob?
Huh?
How many Harvey Joel Osment films have you seen? I'm willing to bet none.
Catalogue is a little bit lacking.
Was he in that?
Comet Osmond.
Was he in that thing with Joaquin Phoenix? Anyway, moving on. Bronk Wonkless. We've got a question from Nathan
Mark,
Roberts.
That's horrible. I know it's Joaquin. I just said Joaquin once, and you've never stopped on about it.
Twice.
Never let him live it down.
Twice.
Joaquin Phoenix.
Joaquin.
You're a horrible womp rat.
I said Chitterwell and never lived that one down, Steve.
Guillermo.
You said what, Paul?
I
said Chitterwell Ejiofor, and I never heard the end of that.
We're doing well.
See, we're all victims of Mark's. He's so
right.
Perfect.
I'm going to end the call, Steve. I'm going to kick you off the call. It'll be the shortest episode of Talk Star Wars in over 2 years. Right, Paul, did you want to take Nathan's question?
It's long.
It is.
Okay, greetings, fellas. I was watching Rottager this weekend, And something occurred to me that I hadn't considered before. There have been many jokes made about many jokes made and discussions had about Obi-Wan lying to Luke about his father and keeping his secret his sister. But when he tells Luke to bury the knowledge and Vader discovers the truth about Leia, it all becomes much more reasonable. It wasn't just that Obi-Wan wanted to avoid the uncomfortable conversation, and I think it's widely accepted that part of the reason was that it would be harder for Luke to kill Vader if he knew the true identity. Oh, yeah, of course. But I think it's clear that it was also to keep Luke and Leia's identity secret from Vader and the Emperor. Obi-Wan knew that this was inevitable, and Luke would encounter Vader. Open brackets, it was Luke's destiny, as we know, and as he believed. And he knew that the Sith, knowing of Luke and Leia as being part of the Skywalker bloodline, would put them both at greater risk. I think it's extremely understandable in the context that Obi-Wan would keep that a secret, as well as Yoda in Leia's case, by keeping it secret from Luke. I hoped it would be kept a secret from the Sith, basically. Just a passing thought, boys, but I wonder if you A, agree,
yes,
B, disagree, no, B, if you think this may have been part of Lucas's vision. Oh, that's interesting. When he included his retcons in Rottiger, i.e. Obi telling Luke to bury his feelings and Vader knowing of Leia in Luke's mind. Anyway, have a good show. Nathan 1 Kenobi.
Nathan 1 Kenobi.
I've not gone that far down the thought process with this, to be honest.
That's
I mean,
brilliant.
you can understand the whole keep it away from Vader.
Insight.
It's also a whole Sith element.
I think he's spot on. I think that's exactly it. I think it's kind of touched on in the film, but I think he's bang on.
So all that reading, and we're moving on already.
No, not at all.
And actually, this, I had my issues, my reservations about the Yoda and Obi-Wan story at a certain point of view.
Yeah.
This makes it stupider.
Right.
Only from a certain point of view.
Well, yeah, but this, from my point of view, what it does is Yoda's gone, we've done a really good job of hiding Leia for 18 years. Let's put her out in the open as a Jedi. It's like, what?
Well,
she's ready
it through, mate.
From what I get,
they hid Luke as well.
I haven't read that book yet, but I'm assuming that was
that's the story we talked about. The one that
we heard the clip, didn't we? I'm assuming, having not read that story yet, that Yoda would have preferred that Leia be the stronger of the two than the one they trained. But I would imagine that the rules would still apply, that they would have kept Luke's presence and true nature away from Leia,
but
for the same reasons.
It's too late. Luke's already been outed as Force sensitive to Vader because this is after A New Hope.
That's true, actually, because Obi-Wan's dead. Yeah,
he did.
Yeah, but
first he died. Now he did.
Luke's identity is not revealed yet. Well, actually, I'm not sure, because that happened between the two movies as well, didn't it?
And the comics fill in that gap now.
Yeah, it's Boba, isn't it?
Yep.
That would be interesting to see where that
what else
ties
you got?
up.
I'm on fire.
Steve?
Paul's been right twice. I'm on fire. All bets are off. The apocalypse.
Steve, pop round to Rob's and put him out. He's on fire.
Yeah, please.
No, let him burn. I haven't really got an answer to this. I guess, yes, I think it's possible that happened.
Well, it's not.
I don't really.
It did happen. But
is
what
it deliberate?
Yeah, but what is the? Yeah, that's like Nathan's reasoning is that Obi-Wan's not just lying because he's a pants on fire, unreliable narrator, but
point of view.
There is a degree of agency behind his dishonesty, and it is to keep those thoughts out of Luke's mind so that the Sith don't uncover them.
Let me put it another way. I do think it was a clever retcon. It wasn't intentional in the first film, but it worked fine.
Yeah, well, that's definitely the thing. Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. I think that's quite clear from some of the stuff that we've said before about Sir Alec Guinness, his performance being so nuanced that it can be read either way. I don't believe for a second that it was ever written down, and Alec Guinness had one version of the script that laid out everything that was going to happen in the next two movies. They just got lucky, I think.
Really use his own force ways, did he, during that whole time that we know of? I mean, he didn't lift one sleeper in the bridge over the River Kwai. He could have done a lot of work instead of letting all those soldiers die. You know what I mean? They're all dying in the hot boxes. and he's levitating.
Oh my!
No one wants to die in the hot box.
In his tent.
No, what a way to go!
Exactly.
What a wonderful smell you've discovered.
So, Rob, Paul, you said you never wandered down this path before, but you think
not that
reasonable?
No, it's almost like levels to it, isn't there? It's like Luke's imagination on Luke's thoughts on his friends, and Leia leading to Vader knowing about it, leading to the Emperor knowing about it, leading to the Sith knowing about it. So, yeah, it's almost like a mind map, quite literally.
It's reasonable that Obi-Wan would keep that back, isn't it?
Big time, but. Is it coming? I mean, it could be a bit of both. It could be, we can use that as a retcon.
But that's the second part. That's the second part of Nathan's question, isn't it? Do you think that this might have been part of Lucas's vision?
100%.
When he included it in his retcon.
To be honest, none. I mean, have they ever released any kind of manuscript into the original story that he wrote for Star Wars? Because it's apparently it's like 9 million pages or something ridiculous.
Yeah,
I'd love to know.
There's a comic book series out there.
The Star Wars, yeah. It's well, I mean, I suppose it's not Legends still, is it? Because it's still based on a story that never happened.
Yeah.
So it's as much Legends as it ever was.
It's very weird.
Yeah, it is weird. Yeah, it's very much more Flash Gordon-y.
Yeah.
Very much more.
That's what Mr. Lucas thinks.
Yeah. But it's the influence is so much more obvious in the Star Wars comic, like in the original Star Wars screenplay stuff. It's so much more obvious.
Rob.
Hello.
Do you think there's any Jedi that has truly, out of all of them, lived up to the Jedi ways? The only one I can think of is Qui-Gon, because even old Ben went to kill Anakin, which is technically not a Jedi way, and Yoda was going to kill Palpatine.
How did he said, I will do what I must.
Which Jedi has come the closest to actually living the Jedi way his whole life?
Well,
I would say Qui-Gon, isn't it?
Qui-Gon intended on killing Darth Maul.
Depends who you ask, don't you?
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? I have a feeling we're going to find out more about that in December.
I do too. I think that the Jedi Council had a bee in their bonnet with the way Qui-Gon was behaving, because he was all being all new agey about stuff, wasn't he? And living Force and wear tie-dyed robes. But no, they didn't want him to do that stuff. They wanted him to toe the line.
Did you guys eat the smoothies I made you?
But the way
made with kale.
Qui-Gon approaches the Force turns out to be the Jedi's best hope, because obviously the teachings he passes on to Yoda helps Yoda connect with the living Force
and get Ben to talk to Luke
and expand their life beyond death, so that they can still help guide. And Yoda still might not be done with that just yet. So,
I mean, those nuances of the Force, all those special abilities, will have been lost and gained 1,000 times over the millennia, wouldn't they? But they get lost in the ether and then regained somehow, like the Force rears its head a bit.
Rob said, I think December's going to lift the lid on a lot of this stuff, because what we've seen so far, we've seen the Force through two lenses, really. We've seen it through the lens of the Jedi and we've seen it through the lens of the Sith, and we haven't really seen much of it. But I think we can pretty much say that both those disciplines are kind of wrong.
Not without
maybe
their flaws,
the Force and the dark and the light side of the Force are one and the same thing.
I think that's where we're going. Yeah.
Force horseshoe theory. I like it. That's a real thing.
Horseshoe theory.
We're on our way to answers anyway, I think. And all these concerns about Luke looming on posters, I think they'll all be explained by the position he finds himself within the Force, and not obeying one doctrine or another, but potentially both. All right. Nathan, incredibly insightful.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, Nathan.
And you got our support 100%.
Yes.
And Steve's like 70, because he's forgotten the other 30.
Yeah, exactly. He's forgotten the first bit of the question.
That's pretty good, though.
It was long.
Bad going,
yeah. Considering I have little longing and yearning as compared to you guys, I don't do bad. If you want me to name all of the Latin names for ladybugs, I could probably go a lot bit further for you.
Yeah, and we'll be asleep in no time.
Maybe we'll do that in the after dark.
If I ever think of it, if I ever find myself wanting to do that, I'll let you know. I will also be calling some other people for
different
kinds of help.
Post-mortem show,
Yeah, I will also be calling other people for different kinds of help at that point.
The name of my next Earth house, which I'm going to build, which is I've got
Steve, not now.
Is going to be called a Dahlia, and that's a 7-spot ladybird or a 2-spot, I can't remember. There you
That's
go.
that girl you met in Brighton.
Excellent.
No,
Yeah.
her name was
His name.
Tracy.
Her name was
kept her
Jeremy.
tricks in her knickers.
All right, let's one more piece of listener comments from Dave Donovan this week, and then we can get into some news. Dave says, "Hey lads, trying to come up with questions that can be answered. My latest effort. The Last Jedi will not repeat Empire in any major way, but in a minor it might. We finally get to see Luke and Rey's first interaction. Is he going to toy with her a little bit and be an inverse of Yoda's playfulness by being a bit cantankerous? Cue Rob." I should have had you read this, Rob.
What have I done? Sorry?
Don't worry. So instead of...
How did he know I was going to be cantankerous tonight?
So instead of, I am wondering why are you here, well, we get grumpy old guy asking, why are you here? But does he know why? Is he just playing with her to test her? A hard intro, if you will, like a hard introduction. A threadbare question, but eager to hear it explored. May the force be with you, Dave. So will Luke be playful with Rey the way Yoda was with Luke?
No,
we've already seen it in the trailer. He's standoffish and cynical.
Mute us, Steve, and we'll text you to come back in.
I've got my earpiece out.
Hi, Ray. I've been looking for that, but first, waffles.
I think. Oh God. Yeah, I think that there will be some of this.
I found your torch.
Cantankerous attitude taken from Luke towards Rey when she gets there. Without a doubt. I don't think it's going to be the playful thing that Yoda did at all.
I don't think he knows who she is either.
No.
I think also Yoda's playfulness wasn't real. It was a ruse to get him
to make him impatient,
wasn't it?
Yeah. To show he was impatient and not ready. He's trying to prove his point to Obi-Wan that he's not ready.
Yeah. Otherwise, Yoda was just a stupid little green troll.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair.
And I nearly punched a girl at work for calling Yoda a green troll the other day.
We don't endorse that sort of attitude.
No, it's just a film, mate.
No, she kept going. No. Is that the one from another famous trilogy, which I can't remember now, Raiders of the Lost Ark, it might have been. She went, is that the green troll films from Harry Potter? That was it. I went, what?
8 films.
Went, he's a green troll. I went, take it back. I was getting really defensive over Yoda.
Did he thank you?
That it was a puppet with a hand up its bum.
Yeah, I was going to say, because he didn't thank you because he's not real.
I don't see
where
Yoda was sort of playing a part in that interaction with Luke. I don't think that we're going to get that with Luke and Rey. I kind of get the impression that straight away he's going to be, you shouldn't be here, and I don't want any part of this.
I think the question, why are you here, is going to be more existential than literal.
Right.
And I think in the similar way, the who are you, this kind of theme of who are you throughout the, it was in the original teaser.
Mm-hmm.
I'm no one. And I think over the course of the trilogy, that's one of the themes that is going to be explored, is finding out who she is. And it doesn't matter who she was. It matters who she is now and what those events and what those things have built her character to be. So I think that's, if we start hearing questions like that, they're not going to have a literal, why are you here on Acto with me on Thursday the 14th of whatever, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. I think it's going to be very much more of a, why did you come here? Why didn't you just stay on Jakku where it's safe and all that sort of stuff? What is it that drives you?
Do you get the idea that Yoda and Luke are quite happy being alone on their own little world, getting old, and just fed up with everything, and just leave me alone? I want to die here. I've had enough of humans, and the rest of you, key off.
No, not quite. I think Luke's thing
like
is...
you, Steve.
Yeah, very much like me.
I think Luke's whole thing is going to be more about, where did I go wrong?
Yes.
Because he's kind of backtracking through the, obviously looking for the first Jedi temple.
He's trying to escape a mistake.
Yeah, he's trying to escape a mistake. And he's trying to kind of overanalyze it to death almost. Like, what did I do? Where did I go wrong? What point did I lose Ben? At what point did I lose track of what was going on? Why did I miss why did I miss all the signs? That sort of thing. So he's going to be going back looking for answers. She's going back. She's coming to him looking for the same thing about her past, and he's actually going to convince. Well, they're kind of going to convince each other together that the past is kind of relatively unimportant in the grand scheme, and what you do next is what counts.
what she
Twice
said.
you've been
But
pretty
I have further thoughts on that, but I can't say it with Steve here.
Oh, let me mute you. Go on.
I think that
Steve sucks.
I think that where we're going to get disappointed with Luke is that we're going to find out that he's going to give up during episode 8.
Right.
He's actually going to start off with I'll train. All right, fine, I'll train you. And then there's going to be a point probably where the rock breaks and he's going to stop and he's not going to go any further. And then at that point, she's going to be on her own and she's going to go off and confront Snoke by herself.
And he's going to think he's made another mistake.
Yeah. So maybe he gets brought back into action.
And he throws himself off the highest cliff in Act 2.
But there's some of that. There are elements in that trailer that looks like a confrontation between Rey and Luke, right?
Yeah.
And looks like he might come off a little bit worse for wear if she stands up for...
Shoves him.
Yeah. I also think that she goes to Octo not necessarily looking to be trained, but to bring Luke back for the Resistance. So
yeah,
it might be... But also we hear her ask for direction. I need to know what my place is. I need to know...
Yeah.
What I do with this thing now that I've got this ability, what do I do with it?
Yeah.
And if he's not forthcoming with those answers, I can see why she would get frustrated.
Well, there's the other possibility as well, is that she goes there to recruit him for the Resistance. He says no, and then she doesn't leave, and he's like, "You're still here. Why are you still here?"
Mm-hmm.
And she says, "Well, there's something else as well." And then she kind of discusses the Force and this kind of awakening power within her, and then that's where the training kind of begins in earnest, because they have a discussion after that point, after she's established that he's not coming with her to the Resistance base. She realizes that if she doesn't convince him to train her now, she's going to leave and he's going to stay there, and that's going to be it.
Yes.
Bam.
It works. Right, Steve, you can come back. Let's bring him back in. I'm not even bothering putting any vowels in his name. Well, maybe he can have one now.
Stonv. Return.
I'm back.
Paul, did you want to say anything on this subject that isn't spoilery now that Steve's back?
No, I think seriously, I think I've said everything I was going to say about the whole Luke and Rey situation. So
that's cool.
That's all I have to say.
I think I know where we're going with this.
Yeah, more cantankerous, more. There's going to be more weight behind Luke's.
I just don't think he wants to know at the moment until he realises the loss of Han and the danger Leia's in. That's what's going to prick his ears up.
Oh my!
Right, Dave. Thank you very much for your question. As always, sir. We're going to run off to our quick break now, and then when we come back, we're going to jump straight into Last Jedi news, which will have potential spoilers. So if you are gun shy, you might want to jump out here.
No. What?
You've come in just to go out again, Steve.
No, he hasn't.
I'm just
laid down with his Avatar bedspread.
Well, no, this isn't part of the trailer, is it?
I love JC.
No, it's not the trailer, mate.
No, but that's fine. I can do spoilers if they're conjecture.
All right. We'll be right back after our break for Last Jedi news. If you'd like to support what we do here at Talk Star Wars, then head to patreon.com/Talk Star Wars and become a patron. Your support will help us as we expand our programming to include further shows, and in return, you'll get access to an exclusive VIP Facebook group, a monthly prize draw, weekly Facebook live sessions, priority release podcasts, an exclusive daily podcast, and a whole lot more. Head to patreon.com/Talk Star Wars today and become a TSW patron. And we're back. That was our Patreon promo spot. So if you want to sign up over there at patreon.com/Talk Star Wars, you'll get priority release podcasts, a whole bunch of exclusive stuff, VIPs, Facebook group. You'll get Facebook live sessions every week and monthly giveaways. Okay, let's get into our news section. So this is for The Last Jedi. So there's potential for some spoilers to be in this section. All right, Last Jedi news, potential spoilers ahead then. Right, Andy Serkis has revealed this sort of goes back to some of the stuff we were talking about early on. Andy Serkis has revealed that Snoke has a fully developed backstory written by Rian Johnson, and Andy Serkis, knows it. So he's obviously had that story now to sort of flesh out his performance a little bit. Does that give you a degree of comfort knowing that they've fleshed
I think it tells
out?
us that Snoke's going across 2 films.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. I think it tells us that JJ didn't have a backstory, which is a bit unnerving.
Why?
Well, no, he could have had some vague, like some kind of rough notes, and then Rian Johnson's fleshed out the bits behind it. Because backstory we're talking about, right? It's not,
no.
Here's one thing I find interesting. If Rian Johnson wrote the backstory, that makes it less likely that Snoke is Plagueis.
Why? Because it's Ryan.
Because if it was Plagueis, it would be George Lucas who wrote the backstory, surely.
Oh, I see what you mean. Right, yeah.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
Let's say it's not cut, you know.
It doesn't
cut and
roll
dry
out.
Way backstory.
Yeah, it's not cut and dry. It's not cut and dry in terms of like, this is definitive proof, but it's just, I find that interesting. The fact that he's been able to write a full backstory suggests to me that there's nothing to work from before, which means it's like, to me, that makes it less likely.
Yes.
But I could be wrong.
No, I see what you mean. I think it's somewhat semantic because Andy Serkis is saying Ryan's developed it because it's a part of Ryan's script. It doesn't mean that he hasn't called back on something that George has already designed, but I doubt very much that is the case. I think you're probably right that, this is Ryan doing something completely original. And in a way, I know it's very tempting to sort of everyone to hit JJ with a big stick saying you didn't set enough up, but in a way, he's been quite courteous to say this character did what he needed to do in this story. Now you decide what you do with him, and not box the next storyteller in by saying, "No, this is it. This is the ABCs of it." There's nothing in The Force Awakens that can't be developed. You know what Nathan was saying about retcons. Yeah, in listener comms, there's room here for that. There's room here for him to develop those stories.
And that's kind of what I was saying about Rey's parents as well. JJ could give us the very, very basics to set up the characters, and then they can be fleshed out further. So he doesn't have to know the ins and outs of the story up to that point. He just needs to know enough to get through the gates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyone care to have a little punt at what this backstory might be?
Oh, not a clue.
He's from the unknown regions.
That I'm willing to put money there. Yeah.
He is.
He
ancient.
was the R2 unit that exploded when he was trying to sell it to Luke.
R5, D4.
Okay, I've changed my mind. I want that.
R5.
That could explain the
I told
scarring.
you this guy had a bad motivator. Look.
Bad mood. I'll show you, boy.
I'll get you.
It's the last thing I do as
It's
an
the
old
last
man.
thing I'll do. Yeah.
I'll have a species change.
I'm starting to think that Snoke and Luke might be two sides of the same coin. Like
In what way?
Two Force acolytes who have found a way to unite the light side and the dark side, and they've become opposite ends of that paradigm. So Luke's decided, I can now do all this amazing stuff, so I'm going to live in solitude and stay out of events.
Yin and yang.
Snoke is.
And Snoke's thinking, no, I've got all this ability now, I'm going to do this large, and I'm going to do it way larger than it was ever done before.
I reckon Snoke is Luke's grandfather.
And so you
That's
do
Anakin,
reckon
isn't it?
that's Plagueis?
Oh, Plagueis.
No.
Of course,
I
yes.
reckon, yeah.
It's implied there's Plagueis. It's never outright
It's
said.
Anakin's father. It's Snoke's Anakin's father.
Do you know?
I just feel that could be dumb.
Yeah, it's not insane though.
It's not, but I mean, I just feel like it's a bit like, you know, and you're no good grandkid, and yes, the people in the throne room start chanting Jerry, Jerry, Jerry.
Yeah,
sort of a bit melodrama, you know.
It would be the small universe thing that we're all desperate to avoid, and connecting everybody, which we don't really want. Everything connected.
Well, we don't want that, but actually, a lot of people do. I mean, you know, we're guilty of it sometimes. We do want the kind of the familiar tinge on what we already know. So we want something that's shiny, but it still can be old.
Because the Force is like gravity. You all coalesce together, won't they?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a force that occurs within the universe. So, yeah, I mean, in that respect, you're absolutely right. I don't mean that sarcastically. I literally mean I
No,
realize
no.
I have one of those voices where you can't always tell. But yeah, I'm just a
Hashtag
tool.
sincerity.
Hashtag toolbox.
Yeah, that's. If I was going to have to make a prediction about who Snoke is right now, I'd say that's who he is, and it's like holding a mirror up to the Luke that we're going to see. If you go too far with this thing and you let it get out of control, you become unstoppable. And Luke's the very other end of that spectrum, living this small life, introspective life on a tiny island somewhere. He's like the secret weapon that can undo all this stuff, and he's decided to hide himself away. A lot like Yoda, so we're getting those familiar notes. But rather than Snoke be this power-mad person like Palpatine who is still on the ascent, I think he's already there. I think he's already fully formed. This incredibly powerful Force user that's just gone wild with power and opulence. Sorry, Steve, you want to say something?
I was going to say, or Snoke is the milk tray man, and he slips into unsuspecting women's bedrooms, impregnates them, and
I'm
leaves them in
glad
a
you
box of
ended
milk
that
tray.
sentence where you did. I'm glad you didn't end it earlier.
Milk tray might be a target reference considering how many people we have listen overseas, but I like where you're going.
Then for those, I will say something that will instantly mean something to them.
Google it.
There you go.
You dropped a note.
Thanks for adding the last note, Paul.
Team effort.
Now that's really rounded it off.
He's our scores guy. It's what he does.
Yeah.
Google the man from Milk Tray. He basically slips into women's rooms in the dead of night and leaves them a box of chocolates.
He did it again. There's that little pause, that little pregnant pause, if you'll pardon the expression.
Yeah. Steve, I want to see the card. I want to see what his silhouette would look like on his card.
Yeah.
Get drawing.
He wouldn't have a cracked skull. He'd be very aesthetic, wouldn't he? He'd be comely. That's a good word.
It is good. Yeah, we don't hear about that one much anymore.
I'm going to have to beep out half of it, yeah.
No, you don't have to beep out comely.
Oh, this tangent's still going on. It's like I'm trapped.
It's a word.
It's like I'm trapped in a tangential nightmare.
All right, now, Steve, you were way ahead. You were on the side of you had the moral victory, and then you just ruined it.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. Also, sticking with Andy Serkis, he revealed that the tone in the trailer for The Last Jedi is in fact representative of the tone in the final film, which is set to be quite dark. This is one of his comments. I thought the trailer was spectacular and very intense. It absolutely reflects the tone and the feel of the movie. I do think this movie is really going to surprise people with its plot line and the story and its tension in it.
Can I rewind? You've said the final movie, and Steve, you've got your microphone up your nose again. Thank you. Okay, it says the final movie, but then it sounds like referring to the current movie.
So what does he mean?
Yes, I think. Sorry, I meant the next movie, the Last Jedi. That's what he's referring to. The trailer for The Last Jedi representative, the tone in the movie, like the final cut of the movie. Do you see what I mean? Rather than it be the last movie, it's the final
I know.
cut of the movie, which is set to be quite dark. So, yeah, what do we make of his comments there? I thought the trailer was spectacular, very intense, absolutely reflects the tone of the feel of the movie. I do think this movie is going to be really surprise people with its plot line and the story and the tension in it.
The tension thing's interesting, isn't it?
Big time. No, bring it on.
Something like a race against time kind of environment that evokes to me.
That might be quite cool.
Yeah, so there's some sort of, maybe the tension throughout the film is that, the resistance is always on the run the whole way through.
Yes, this is where I was going.
Because the resistance the rebellion, in Empire, they escape and then they sort of disappear for half the movie. And actually, in fact, you barely see, I don't think you even see them for the rest of the movie, do you? The rebellion just kind of vanishes and goes off to
we only see them at the end in the
Luke
fleet.
Goes off, Han goes off. You don't see that's it. You only see them regroup with the fleet at the end of Empire. So actually, they're gone for the whole film.
Right.
So
can
that'd
I
be
ask
interesting.
a quick round table? How in terms of time, how long do you expect this? Not how the running time of the film, but in terms of time, how long do you think this will take place over? Like Empire took place over like a couple of months, right?
Was it that long?
Yeah, because Luke was on Dagobah for
Dagobah
a couple of months.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
What do you expect the time frame to be for this movie, considering we're dropping straight in from the end of The Force Awakens? Is this going to be a really compact storyline?
I think it's just going to be, several days.
I feel like the Rey training bit needs to go on for longer, so maybe there needs to be a bit of...
That's a good point.
Because otherwise, because you're not going to help the whole argument about, you're not going to help the whole discussion about Rey and her unnaturally fast abilities if she suddenly then goes from naught to master in 20 minutes.
Yeah. I like Rob's thinking. In that case, I'm going to revise mine to 3 months.
All right.
3 months.
3 months. All right. We're making an assumption that Rey leaves trained and doesn't do a Luke and just go, right, I'm off.
Yeah, possibly. But even if we're talking about, her being able to crack rocks and swim,
swim
and that sort of thing.
Force power. I might be a Jedi.
If they turn around and...
Only if I can touch the bottom.
I'm happy if they can explain it away, or if it's credible that I can do it without too much effort. But if I'm having to really do mental gymnastics to explain away crappy writing, then that's where I take umbrage.
The reason I asked that question was because I'm kind of expecting this film, and this is where the tension part kind of makes sense from Andy's quote. I'm expecting this to be the chase of the Resistance from the base, the stuff we missed between Star Wars and Empire. I expect this to be the Resistance being pursued off of Dakar, and then the attempt, because remember Rose and Finn go on a mission, and I believe their mission is to shut down the Resistance, shut down the First Order's ability to track the Resistance whilst they're in hyperspace.
Right.
Because there was a toy set that had light speed tracking labelled as part of the play set.
As the play layout, yeah.
So I think that Finn and Rose, I think their mission is to shut down the First Order's ability to track the Resistance in transit as they make their way from Dakar to Crate. They're trying to cover their tracks. That's why I think there might be some tension, because this is a chase movie. This is the First Order pursuing the Resistance from one base to the next.
So Crate's the finale?
Crate's the third act finale.
Right.
So clearly they're not successful. But we've seen what appears to be Finn... Steve, cover your ears. We've seen what appears to be Finn captured whilst having infiltrated...
Yeah, a little bit Rogue One, wasn't it?
Yeah, and...
Celebi.
And I suspect that will be what motivates Rey to go off and leave Octo, is to go and find Finn and rescue Finn, potentially. A bit of a callback to Empire. That's what I think. If they fail their mission, that's why I think the First Order find them on Crate. And then it's everyone rally around, get back to Crate and just put up a defence. No longer trying to hide where they are, but fight for where they are.
Right.
So that could be the tension, right?
Back to the wall stuff.
Now come back now.
Yeah, come back.
Come back, Joe.
Take the microphone out your nose.
All right, yes, in there. All right. People are suggesting that the looming figure of Luke, we've discussed it once already, I think, this evening. The looming figure of Luke in the posters of Last Jedi indicates that the character will go to the dark side in the new movie. What are your thoughts, gents?
I don't know, actually. I didn't know about this until you pointed it out to me a short time ago.
Someone put a wonderful collection of the posters together, and it made its way into the Facebook group.
Mark Hamill saw it. Mark Hamill reacted to it.
He did. Did you see his tweet?
Yes, it was great.
What did he say?
He put a side-by-side of the posters where so basically somebody collected it and did it as a meme with a picture of him saying all the villains are always at the top, right?
Yeah.
So then Mark Hamill saw it, and he put the picture side by side with a different picture, which is one of the old memes that did the rounds about Luke Skywalker, about him being a radical and killing 300 million people. So from a certain point of view, he was a terrorist.
Yeah.
And he went, "I've got news for you. Luke's always been the villain from a certain point of view."
It was
so he just kind of played off. He just kind of played off it, which was really nice. Really fun to see.
True. If you're a member of the Empire, Luke's always been the villain.
Yeah, exactly. So he was playing off that, which was quite enjoyable. Me personally, I don't think he will go dark in the binary sense in terms of really straightforward. He go bad. But I think, like I said, I think that presence in all the posters is designed to prepare us for the fact that he's going to let us down. Or he's going to let down our expectation of our expectation of him and our memory of him. He's not going to live up to that in this film. His redemption comes later.
Yeah, well, that's a good way of looking at it.
You know my feelings on it.
I know, but you
hate joy.
Well, there is that,
and meat.
I don't.
And actually,
hate
to
joy.
be fair,
I'm a great lover of joy, but I do believe he's already passed his test.
Joy.
He's passed his test. He's been there, got the T-shirt. He's not.
It's a white T-shirt.
To the dark side would be ridiculous. But somewhere in between might be all right.
Yeah, I think it's clear. I don't think it's as clear cut as Luke's going to go to the dark side, but I do think
going to go grey.
He's going to disappoint. He's going to disappoint us.
The dark side exists anymore.
That's possible.
That's my take on it. There's no sides in the Force because everyone's. It's a bit like colour, isn't it? There's no white and black.
Did you pinch your nose before you started talking, Steve? You've gone a bit nasal.
Steve,
your mic.
Can you see on his mic?
Just tape your microphone to your front of your head or something. I think you're right, Steve. I think what you're saying, there's no pleasing. There is just better mic discipline.
I did have a nice mic, but someone gave it to someone else.
No, you gave it up because you couldn't make it work.
That is also true.
And I did.
But
it did look nice.
I think you're right, Steve. That yes, I think from Luke's perspective, there's no light side or dark side. It's just the Force. I think that's his position, but we're going to have to view him, at least for this movie, through the eyes of everybody else in the story. So Rey rocking up thinking she's going to meet this wonderful Jedi Knight, and she's meeting this miserable old git who just says, "No, I don't want any part of this."
Become a total nihilist.
Yeah, it's like Luke's shock at meeting Yoda. For her, she hasn't met this legend she is expecting to meet.
Don't meet your heroes.
So viewing him through her eyes, it's going to be very complicated. And seeing, we said in some of those promo materials, he's looming large in the background for the heroes and he's looming large in the background for the villains. I think he's on both sides, literally, because he's managed to unify the Force, or at least his vision of what the Force is. So
I see it slightly different. I see it a little bit differently. My point of view is it's going to be more of he's a disappointment in the he failed somewhere along the line in a way that we haven't understood yet.
Yeah, well, I think that's Ben is the failure, right?
No, but that's something we do know about. I think there's something else. Right. I just don't know what it is yet.
Okay.
Well, I might be way off base. I don't know.
No, if they can throw something else in there. I do think that this being a Skywalker story, it needs to sort of revolve around his failure with Ben, and Ben is the character that we need to see.
That'll be part of it, and you'll obviously see you see the impact of that already anyway. That's already been a thing in the films. You've seen the results of what that's brought. He's taken out one of our beloved childhood heroes.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's more that we haven't heard yet that's coming. And I think that I think it's worse than we thought in some way. I just don't know off the top of my head what that might be.
Okay. Yeah, some interesting stuff there to pick through. It will be interesting. I think that one of the things I keep considering is Kylo or Ben Solo and how he was the first victim in all of this, and they need to reposition that character so that we start to view him that way. Some of that stuff in the trailer might be that, I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So it's not an out and out. We're not writing Luke off as a dark side villain immediately, just because of these posters. Paul, did you have a say on this? Did you make a comment on this?
No, sorry, I didn't.
No. You got.
I'm looking at the posters now, and I think. One of those situations, marketing strategies could change. It doesn't always going to go along the same thread, maybe. So, the fact that the posters have been set up in a certain way all this time. We also know that Rian Johnson's decided to go in a slightly different direction from the point of view of the way he's made the movie. So, marketing might go in the same direction as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no hard and fast rules, I guess.
Plausible.
Okay, let's move on to
Paul Zibble.
Possible.
Make that trend.
Hashtag Possible.
Yeah.
So a new image of Amelin Holdo has popped up. This was on MakingStarWars.net yesterday.
She got a name we've heard before in any shape or form? Have you read before?
The what, sorry?
Has she got a name that you guys have read before?
Amelin Holdo.
Mm.
Yeah, that's it. Amelin Holdo.
No, I mean in a previous book, Bloodline, anything like that.
She features in the new Leia book by Claudia Gray.
Okay.
But I haven't gotten to read any of that.
She's like a Mon Mothma type character.
She's a childhood friend of Leia's, I believe.
Okay.
And they have some connection to Crate. But I think this image, we can see it's in the show notes. You can download the show notes and have a little look. It's her sort of taking centre stage here. So, Steve, I see why you mentioned Mon Mothma in front of a group of resistance fighters, possibly in a base, although Jason was speculating over on Making Star Wars that this is the Radus, the ship that we see Leia on in the trailer.
Is that a BB unit? Yeah, I guess so.
It's a BB unit, yeah, awesome looking BB unit. Now this, we heard early on, this goes back to being potentially quite spoilery, but Steve, this is something you've heard before.
Speculative as well.
Very speculative. It's based on rumours that came out through MSW, but early on it was reported that Leia would be incapacitated after an attack on a ship, and that Holdo would step forward and try and take control of the resistance, and Poe would need to stand up and wrestle control back from Holdo because of the direction she was taking things. I think he wants to be a little bit more proactive, the way Leia would deal with it, and Holdo not so much. So this might be that period in time where Leia's out of the loop.
I think this is the scene we're seeing, based on the facial expression she's got on and the facial expressions of the people around her. They're all a bit sad. Yeah. And she's got a look on her face like she's not particularly, I mean, obviously Laura Dern's quite, pretty talented. So I think she's it seems to me like she's putting on a face that says, I'm not massively keen on what I'm having to do here, but it's got to be done. So she's kind of being the one to make the unpopular decision, which is that they need to move on, and they can't stop running, they can't stop running, basically. And I think that's where you start seeing the we are the spark that will light the fire and all that stuff in the trailer. That's not too spoilery, Steve. You'll be fine.
Okay.
It's just it's a really short allusion.
They set fire to a trailer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So do you expect that she wants to keep the fleet on the move and keep running, and Poe's saying no, let's set up base somewhere and fight?
I think she might be. I mean, she may even be talking surrender.
Yeah, that's one step further, I guess.
Yeah, again, it might be a reluctant thing of like, she's not thinking about, be an argument about what Leia would have wanted were she in charge, and she's kind of, well, she's not in charge, and we have to work around that and that sort of thing. So it could be a kind of power struggle based on one trying to be practical and one trying to honor Leia's wishes.
Yeah, there was a political situation, wasn't there, where Leia was taking the Resistance a little bit further away from Hosnian Prime and the support that it had there at the time. I wonder if Holdo would be keen to sort of bring the Resistance more central, more in line with whatever the government is.
I reckon she's holding Leia. I think Leia's, because of Leia's gumption and push, I think Leia's being holding cell situation, and she's basically saying we're doing this, and everyone's like, we don't like this, but it's that kind of temporary dictator situation that comes in.
Okay.
Oh, that's interesting.
Is she a humanoid character?
Yeah.
I mean, I can see what she looks like. I only ask,
that should be your clue, mate.
Is that Elnet or is that her indigenous hair?
This is part of the story in the book. I've heard that she changes hair color regularly. That's the kind of character she is. Not vacuous.
Have they got time to do that? Being chased by the
not in the movie. In the book, when it was more when there was less rebellion, it was the Rebel Alliance hadn't even been formed, when they were still like senators and things like that. as a
Resistance,
young
you mean?
person. No, back in the day,
Would it
when
not
they were
washed
kids,
out
when her
by
and
now,
Leia were
though?
children, she was
Oh,
always
I
changing
see.
her hair. They could be, there was a little bit more
Right.
time for people to sort of be
Yeah.
wasting on this sort of thing. But yeah,
But she would have reverted back to her natural colour, so that probably is her natural colour then, isn't
maybe
it?
blue rinse.
Yes.
No, she's tartan
Oh, no.
normally. She's tartan.
Paul,
my kind of girl.
I like the
No, she's not what you think she is, mate.
I like what you just said about she might be holding Leia, and Rob's theory about Leia being forced into exile, and the way we discussed potentially her not taking the shot on Kylo when she had it might lead to almost like frame Leia as almost a mutineer.
Oh, okay.
Like we see something in the trailer, Steve. You might want to just cover your ears for a second. It seems that both sides, Kylo and Leia, are in a situation where they can take the shot and accomplish a goal. I don't think either of them manage that. And this movie's starting to shape up for me as almost there's a thing about duality in it. So if Luke is the opposite side of Snoke, Leia and Kylo might be the opposite sides of a dynamic. They both need to be able to take each other out. Kylo to fulfill his destiny, Leia to shut that down so that he's no longer a threat. If she fails to do that when he attacks the Raddus, could Holdo have her arrested and imprisoned, or put in the brig or whatever for mutiny?
I heard the last bit of that, Mark. Do you think it's likely that the reason Leia, if she is in jail, because she refuses to give up Luke's location, and they want to use it as a bartering tool with the...
That's a good idea.
Oh, I like that.
That's a great idea. Yes, I mean that's a really strong idea, Steve. That Holdo would be willing to roll over and give Snoke what he wants to be left alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. That's really good.
Well, it kind of ties into what I was saying about surrender. So it's a form of surrender, isn't it?
Yeah.
Giving up somebody who actually she's probably stopped buying into the hype around Luke. Because because all the stuff around Luke and what he's done between Jedi and Force Awakens, we don't really know how involved he was with galactic, with the galaxy at large. So he's obviously become a mythical figure for people on the Outer Rim, and the Western Reaches by the time Force Awakens starts. So maybe he's just kind of faded out of thing, and nobody's believing in the hype of him anymore. So when they're, they don't see it as giving up this great, powerful Jedi Master. They see it as, this bloke who was around once and didn't really do. He did some stuff, but there's conjecture about how useful he really was. And he doesn't have any value to them in the immediate. Yeah. In the immediate, does he? He's not an asset. Well, especially if he refuses if it's communicated back that he refuses to come back. Yeah. It's like, well, he won't even help us. Why would you protect him? That's a great call, Steve. I like that a lot. Really good one.
Well, I do have them from now time to time.
But she did it more often.
No, because when it happens,
we could probably predict the film from a long time ago all the way up to the credits.
Yeah.
These little switched on occasionally.
These little pearls of wisdom wouldn't be so much pearls anymore, would they, Steve?
True.
If you spat them out all the time. All right.
Exactly.
Paul's BRB. Paul, you back?
No.
Just.
Oh, he's back. Okay. All right. We're going to move on to some Han Solo news then, or should I say Solo, a Star Wars story. So Ron actually, it was a video this time, wasn't it, on his Twitter feed, an official announcement that the film was wrapping, and to celebrate they announced the title, which is Star Wars, excuse me, it's not that at all. It's Solo.
A solo movie.
It's Star Wars, a Star Wars, Star Wars.
A solo story.
Star Wars. It's Solo, a Star Wars story. So,
okay.
Yeah, that was exactly my reaction, Steve. What do we think of this title?
I like it, all right.
Yeah.
All right. Good.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, it's better than Han Solo, a Star Wars story.
Do you think?
I think you're right. I think that would have been a bit.
I don't know.
It would have been a bit busy, though.
Another
and
word.
Han wouldn't work.
More is more.
Han, a Star Wars story.
Yeah, no.
I don't like the whole Star Wars story, but you know my feelings. I think have an opening crawl and do it like Star Wars. I've always said that. Make it Star Wars if it's Star Wars. Stop trying to make it different.
I will accept a Star Wars story if, when Disney launched their proprietary streaming service, they release a TV show, live-action TV show that's called Star Wars Anthologies.
Oh.
Because if they've dropped the anthology subtitle for these movies, I want it to be used somewhere else, because that I was really invested in. A Star Wars story, I'm not crazy about it. This movie just being called Solo, it's yet to grow on me.
Okay.
I hate to say, I really wanted them to do
Fair
something.
Enough. That's okay.
I wanted them to go large with it.
Mean something that you can read into, like A New Hope, like Return of the Jedi.
Exactly.
Like
That's what I would have liked.
But we're not getting that with the Star Wars stories. We haven't.
Yeah, but
never
why?
had that.
That's my whole point.
Because they want to do something
Wars.
different.
I mean, at the same time, even before you went to see The Empire Strikes Back, you knew the Empire were going to strike back.
Yeah.
Even before you went to see Return of the Jedi, you had a feeling, everything's going to be the way it should be because it's called Return of the Jedi. Giving the story in a title is not always a great idea.
No, but making it ambiguous is brilliant.
Again, not finished.
Ooh.
And
Get the handbag out.
I think there's more to the word solo than you think.
Okay.
Well, I hope there is, because it could be
Flying Solo.
If they haven't used the Han because it's the family name, then and that's what's revealed in the movie, then double thumbs up from me. I just think it's not what I wanted. There was no indication that I was going to get what I wanted, but I wanted a B movie, like an RKO serial type name, like Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Those styles of names. I wanted Han Solo and the Adventures at Star End, or something really big and really bold and really daring.
I think that were they to make. See, the thing is that those kind of movies are being made almost tongue in cheek now, aren't they? That kind of the deliberately naff kind of shonk fest. Yeah. But this is not one of those movies. This is a high production, high budget Star Wars movie made by Lucasfilm, one of the most prominent movie companies in the world, backed by Disney, a massive multinational corporation. I don't think you're going to see that kind of self-referential tongue-in-cheek.
No.
Almost a bit like, silly us, naughty us.
I think they were concerned because the previous directors might have been taking it in that direction.
Yeah, well, that was it.
I think that's where I started to have that feeling.
But
that's where I was
name
getting it from.
Is the least exciting name they could ever have come up with.
I think it's very exciting.
Like, why didn't they call it something like, I don't know, The Falcon Rises or something like that?
What? It doesn't need to be.
Gets your mind thinking, oh, wow, the Millennium Falcon, and it's moving
because it's a film
and
about the origins of Han Solo.
It does nothing for me. It's pants.
They don't go and see it.
like, this is Star Wars. People love them. How much time have we spent talking about the words The Last Jedi, what it means, where, the excitement of knowing where that's going to...
But if it was
and
just
it never means
Jedi,
what you think
we would have still discussed it.
Yeah, to be fair, I mean, what we've just said is that they've called it Solo for a reason. If it's a family name, and we might be getting other Solos in this story, might not be, might completely subvert our expectation, then I'm a little bit more on board with it. If they've dropped the Han for a reason, if it's because, that's not the Solo you should be keeping an eye on.
You might meet more Solos.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
maybe it means alone.
It does mean alone, yes, correct.
Alone.
Yes, well, no, maybe in that context, it's not a name, it's
actually 2 hours of just Han in a chair.
Maybe he's just
having
one off the wrist for 2 hours.
Be somewhere.
Stephen. At the 2 hour and 5 minute mark, he coughs, and that's the most action you get from Han.
It's like salad fingers.
Yeah, and we rate it 5.5 stars. Amazing, tour de force, pun intended.
Completely original.
Completely.
I think it's a nail on head title, and I said that's what it's going to be called because I wanted it to be called that. I think so.
Yeah,
it's going to be
I'm totally good with it. I think I think Paul's right. If you give away, if you give a title that puts a lot of stuff in it, it's, we might end up kind of this leaves it very open for us. We can theoretically we can take the story anywhere in our heads, and obviously that comes with some risks, but I think it's also very liberating in terms of when you come into the film, you literally have no idea what to expect.
That's a really good point.
Last Jedi,
and lack of crawl is even better for that.
Yes, and Last Jedi, there's a certain theme is definitely going to be part of this film. Episode 9, Revenge of the Porgs, you're going to know, what's coming in that regard. So there's that. So it's a lot. It gives them a lot more freedom to play with, and it gives us a lot less to burden ourselves with in terms of anchoring ourselves down. Our imaginations can run wild. Now, the double-edged sword of that is if the movie then gets delayed, then our imaginations could run wild to the degree that nothing they can release will ever satisfy it.
Yeah, that's true. I just had an idea with what we were saying about how this the structure of a Star Wars story. No opening crawls. There's no indication what we're going to get when we go in. The cold open will be the first frame of a cold open. That's it. That's the story starting.
That'll be ordinary Mike sat in a chair, rocking back and forward slowly, going, "I should be somewhere."
Yeah.
And then after 2 hours, you cut to a hangar bay, and he comes running in, putting his jacket on, going, "Sorry." I was
just wondering if you think that they'll keep the convention Rogue One started and have location names pop up on screen over the planets.
I don't think so. Only because I think the reason they did it in Rogue One was because we bounced around a lot in the first act.
Right.
Because
we went from Wabani. We went from, where did we start? We didn't get
Lamu. We didn't get
Lamu. So we did. We got the
Ring of Kafrene.
Gareth. We got Ring of Kafrene. We got Wabani. And all that stuff, a lot of those happened in the first 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot of bouncing around for even if it's a space movie, you do a lot of bouncing around there. It's going to disorient you. And that was a good way of kind of mitigating that. I don't necessarily think we're going to need to do that in Han Solo because I don't think we're going to be moving around as quickly.
Yeah, but how cool would it be if the first place you see has the word Kessel written in the corner?
That'd be interesting. That'd be an interesting place to start the movie.
Yeah.
The final scene is going to be him and Chewie walking into a bar in Mos Eisley.
No, it won't.
Come on, Chewie, let's go get a drink.
I don't think they'll do that, and I don't think they should, because I think they need to be able to make sequels if this.
I really hope they
lands.
do it now.
Unless it's just they sit there and it's like, I like this table. Let's make this our regular table. Let's make this our regular table.
And then Greedo comes in and goes, "Oh, I usually sit there."
Oh, I'll get him next time.
Yeah.
All right, we got a second piece of Solo, a Star Wars story news this week as well, when Ron Howard tweeted out somewhat cryptically #tag and Bink with a couple of Imperial officers. Did you guys see this at the weekend?
I saw
the tweet. And
did Tag and Bink mean anything to anyone?
No, they're in comics though, aren't they?
They are, yes. So there's a Legend series, Tag and Bink. There's a subtitle. I've blanked out of it. I think it's like Tag and Bink Save the Universe or something.
So a bit more like what the Solo title these guys wanted.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I don't know if you guys read these.
No, I hadn't heard of Tag and Bink until this.
So they're comedy comics. They're for kids. They're very kid centric. And basically, Tag and Bink are a pair of Imperial officers who always inadvertently find themselves at the pivotal points in the Galactic Civil War.
Genius.
And make some bonehead move that allows allows the Imperials to come off worst.
Excellent.
But it's a really good story. It's very entertaining. I mean, obviously, their inclusion in canon doesn't mean that their Legends comics become canon, because that does open a whole can of worms about, almost like the slapstick elements of Star Wars. But if anybody's not read them, I heartily recommend. Even, I'm not a Legends decrier, even though it's not canon anymore. Some of it is still entertaining to read, and that
taking into account some of the initial stories we were getting on production and takes and stuff that the other guys were doing. I'm wondering if there's a bit of Tag and Bink influenced the general set,
the general tone.
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, maybe that was the problem. Maybe they're sort of, they're in the film. They've always been in the film, and maybe they weren't. That's another possibility. They weren't coming through in the comic relief way they're supposed to.
Well, there's a bit more to this with subsequent tweets, because the characters of Tag and Bink were created by a gent named Kevin Rubio, who directed a short fan film called Troops, which was brilliant. Troops. It was a lot like, it was based around sort of the cops thing in the 90s when it was that TV show. And Kevin created these characters, and one of these two, I think it's the chap in the middle, Tag or Bink, I don't know which one, is John Kasdan, the scriptwriter. Now, he's a big fan of Kevin Rubio and what he did. So Tag and Bink is kind of just a nod to Kevin Rubio's work.
Oh, here we go. Yeah. So I've just found the some details on Tag and Bink, but finish your thing and then.
Yeah, that was essentially it. So this is John Kasdan, who wants to play the part. It's just a drop in, just a nod to Kevin Rubio. It might have something to do with the tone of the movie being slightly more comedic, but I don't think these are going to be tremendously crucial characters in this story. I think it's just a nod to fans of the expanded storytelling.
So Tag and Bink. So I was wrong. It wasn't Tag and Bink Save the Universe. There's 4 comic sets. They're sort of in, I think it's like issues of 4, but they're quite short. Tag and Bink are Dead, parts 1 and 2. Tag and Bink, the Return of Tag and Bink special edition.
They did one after they were dead.
Yeah.
Return,
yeah, I think they're mistakenly left for dead or something along those lines. The Return of Tag and Bink special edition and Tag and Bink Revenge of the Clone Menace. But it's all, it's just very silly, the nature of it is always they cross paths with major characters. I know hang on, are they rebels? That's not right. I'm sure they start off as stormtroopers.
Yeah, that's everything I've seen is them in stormtrooper armor or Imperial.
Yeah, I think they start off as Imperials, something like that. I'm really struggling now.
Sounds like they did a lot of work for the rebels.
Oh no, here we go. Tag and Bink are rebel officers fighting against Emperor Palpatine and his army until one fateful day aboard a freighter carrying Princess Leia and the stolen plans for the Death Star. Their lives change forever. During an attack on the freighter, Tag and Bink choose life over death and borrow the armor of a pair of deceased stormtroopers to avoid being killed.
Jeez.
Their new disguises get them off the freighter alive and send them off on an adventure neither of them could have predicted. And they are very funny, like I say.
Excellent.
And they're very fourth wall, kind of like Deadpool. Like the opening crawl is about Dark Horse Comics rather than about the universe and the state of Dark Horse.
Not likely to carry over into this film then.
No, very much not.
Not fourth walling it.
Yeah, so they were give you an idea. The reason they're called the second one is called Tag and Bink are Dead 2 is because they're believed to be on the first Death Star when it's destroyed. But yeah, they are a pair of rebels who get mistakenly brought into the stormtroopers ranks, and then they sort of find their way into various different stupid situations over the course of those 4 issues. And they are, like I say, they're very, very funny. They're they're one shots. There we go. There's 4 different one-shot comics, 32 pages.
I have to pick them up.
Definitely worth doing. I can send you a link if you want.
I might have to do it ahead of TSW Comics next month because someone tells me we'll be talking about this then. Yeah,
well, I think if nothing else, all it says to me is they're going to be, if they're in there, they're going to be, what's it called? They're going to be character names and nothing more.
Yeah.
I can't imagine they're going to go any further down that route.
No, definitely not. Like I say, a nod to fans, I think, more than anything else.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty cool stuff, though. All right, thank you, Rob, for the link. Last bit of news for tonight then, and this is Star Wars Episode 9 shaped. I'm sure that we'll start to get more of this now because this is the next show on the docket. J.J. Abrams was speaking to the BBC about Episode 9. He was at an event with Michael Giacchino, which you need for context. So He says, coming back into this world after having done Episode 7, I feel like we need to approach this with the same excitement we had when we were kids, loving what these movies were. And at the same time, we have to take them places they haven't gone. And that's sort of our responsibility. It's a strange thing, Michael, as in Giacchino, has worked on Planet of the Apes, Star Trek, and Star Wars, and these are things of dreams. Yet we can't just revel in that. We have to go elsewhere. So it sounds to me like JJ is getting ready to really go out on a limb with Episode 9 and do something original.
Good.
I hope so.
I'm quite happy.
Yeah,
I'm quite happy for him to do that. I hope he does.
There were some other comments as well, which I haven't put in here. I'll mention it because it's valid. It was part of the Star Wars News Network article that I was reading, but it was a Redditor. It came from a Redditor, so I've put less stock in it than perhaps I should.
All right.
He said that he'd gotten to have some FaceTime with JJ and Chris Terrio, he's co-writer on Episode 9, and they were chatting about Episode 9 and where they were going to take the story. And one of the things that I think it was Chris Terrio said was that the story group haven't given them any restrictions whatsoever.
Okay.
So all bets are off.
Beyond, obviously, they can't overwrite Episode 8.
Yeah, but they haven't given them any
there's no directives of like, this person must live, this person can't die, that sort of thing. Like they used to have in Legends.
Like nothing happens to Luke, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's basically Luke lives like as long as I do, basically.
Yeah, and the other interesting thing that I didn't pop in here was a comment I picked up on the Daily a couple of days ago from Andy Serkis again, where he was asked for comments about JJ directing 9, and he said, I think it's great, and I haven't had a chance to reach out and congratulate him yet, but I'm thrilled for him. Not once did he say, I can't wait to work with him again.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to read too much into that, but the first thing that crossed my mind when I read that was, if he was in 9, if Andy Serkis was in 9, so if Snoke was in 9, he would probably be saying, I am looking forward to see him again. I can't wait. I'm really excited. That's what we got from John Boyega. And I think it was kind of conspicuous by its absence, that comment.
Possibly. I mean, the other option is they're trying to tread more carefully because of the issues like the one with John Boyega where they had, they went, oh, what did he just tell us he was in episode 8 and 9? Oh, man.
Yeah.
Everybody was almost a little bit miffed because they knew too much ahead of time.
We touched on it, didn't we, when John made those comments? We did say then, did he reveal a little bit too much? I mean, no one really expects the heroes to go, but
no.
A surprise death of one of the leads would be
a bit much.
Be spectacular, though, wouldn't it? It would come out of there going, I did not see that coming at all. But now I think with John Boyega making those comments, we're pretty much assured of Finn's safety. But with Snoke being the villain, it really wouldn't surprise me if they dispatched him in this movie. But, I guess it's kind of bold, but it wouldn't surprise me now. Well, how do we feel about JJ's comments that they want to get back to what their love at the core of their fandom for Star Wars? I want to get back to some of that stuff, and also this Redditor mentioned that they were potentially going to include, or at least allude to, aspects of the prequel movies.
Well, that's okay as long as it's not direct and direct rehashing. Like, I mean, for my example, would be like Jakku, Tatooine, and so on and so forth. So as long as it's just not used as a simple excuse for a backdrop or a set, great. If they're going to make reference to an element of storyline or an element of characterization and so on, then fine, that'll work. But I don't just want them to relive the atmosphere of something where we've been before.
I mean, I'm with you there 100%, but it might give Robbie's return to Coruscant.
Yeah, maybe.
Or it could explain more about Anakin's origins.
Yeah, there's one thing I don't want to see turn up, and it's I don't want the prophecy to be revisited unless it's just to talk about it. I don't want it to be, if it changes, let's say it's not going to make me a happy man.
Steve, how do you feel about a potential return to prequel territory in episode 9?
Oh, can I guess?
No, because you've made an assumption there, Robert.
That's why I'm asking if I can guess.
But the story behind them is awesome. if you explained the prequel trilogy in words, it would be a very exciting thing to read. It's just that they didn't translate very well into movies, in my opinion. But I like the idea that he's going off and going to make it different and all that malarkey, because it's better late than never.
Malarkey.
Malarkey.
Yeah.
Because that's a long time coming, and they've obviously listened to, because it wasn't, like it or not, The Force Awakens was not a very well reviewed film. It didn't, it doesn't do well on any of the review sites. Rotten Tomatoes, I think it's like 7 out of 10 or 6.4, something like that.
Force Awakens, yeah?
Something like that. It might not be Rotten Tomatoes.
Are you sure we're talking about
the other one?
Talking about Force Awakens, Episode 7?
Yeah. It wasn't well received by critics, was it?
It was divisive, let's put it that way.
Because of the reasons we've discussed.
93%.
Yeah, of the people that saw it, or critical reviews?
Critical reviews, 89% from the audience.
Hogwash. The people talk out their bums then. No one knows what they're talking about. I'm alone on a planet full of them.
One of them certainly doesn't know what he's talking about.
93%.
And you can't use that word.
A little much.
Oh, God.
Do you know you've done it twice?
Yeah, that one, Steve.
Look, there's most people who are not biased by some, I don't know, like romantic idea of Star Wars would agree The Force Awakens is not a well-made, well-rounded
another
movie.
way to structure that sentence is that people who will agree with you would agree with you.
No, it's a visual feast.
Fest. No, fest. Let's go with fest.
It's a visual fest, but it's not a well-made movie.
It's a visual feast fest.
Only 3 out of the 4 of us think it's one of the best. Don't think it's one of the best Star Wars movies.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah.
It's not a very good movie, is it?
What was that stat? Run that by me again.
Well,
3 out of 4 of the movies
you're
don't
the first
think
to say that you had reservations about Force Awakens when you saw it, and you thought that they did tread carefully and blah blah blah. So on.
Yeah,
and so forth.
it's not my top one. No,
that's what I'm saying.
That's fine. Okay, that's fine. It's just that you went a really arse about face way of explaining that. I just kind of wanted to make sure I understood it. That's fine. Carry on.
Well, I was trying to make the podcast even longer.
Success.
So I think this is a good move. I think it can only be, and I think they've heeded what people said.
Yeah, I agree with you completely there. I think that it smacks of, well, that's a negative frame to place that in, but it feels to me like JJ wants to come back and do it right, and I don't mean that in the way that sounds. Not that I feel that he got The Force Awakens wrong.
To a degree, you might not, but I think to a degree that is correct.
Yeah, I think he wants to try and do it justice. He did openly talk about the criticisms he got after the film, and then he also he justified them in the best way he could. Mm-hmm. But he held his hands up and he said, yes, we retrod a lot of elements for exactly the reasons everyone's talked about so many times. Mm-hmm. This time I don't think he needs to. That's why it's a bit more interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
This time he may well go all for leather. And so, again, that's why it's a bit more interesting. I mean, at the end of the day, Abrams is a very strange enigma because he generally is one of the leading figureheads and imaginative minds behind so many of the really, really original things that been released in the last 10 years or so that have had us drooling. But he then normally bails when that's at the top of its game and he goes and looks at project number 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, et cetera, et cetera. But unfortunately, I wonder if he tends to take that with him into a full production as well. So,
can you give an example? Sorry, Paul, just for the benefits of people who might not be so familiar with his work.
Well, and all of the bad robot stuff.
Okay,
Fringed and Lost and all those kind of things.
Oh, Lost, I suppose that's a good example. Yeah.
Start off, mammoth, but Lost. Come season 4? Everyone was like, is it still on?
Yeah, but there was that writer strike that kind of threw that for a loop.
Yeah, but it's like Fringe. Fringe blew me away for probably
was that one of his?
Yeah.
Fringe was.
Oh wow, okay.
Fringe was magnificent, I thought, for a while, and then I think
what was
again
Fringe,
it lost.
Paul, who made that?
Fringe.
JJ.
JJ was certainly part of the original production team. Yeah.
You can almost see when he leaves it, I think.
Yeah, that's the problem. And part of me wondered,
and a Torv,
if to some degree his imagination wasn't keyed up in the same way when he did TFA. Did that same kind of aspect set it in, and it was let's play safe. Let's not go too bold. Let's play safe and so on. And for me, obviously, it didn't pan out. But if the guy really does let the reins go, let the horses go nuts, he might produce something that completely flattens. So that might be exciting. As much as I'm not keen on the appointment at the moment, if he genuinely, honestly comes out with that kind of point of view and aspect, what I want to do with it, then it could be quite exciting.
Well,
sure.
I hate to throw this spanner into the works as well, Paul, but we've got JJ taking on either the final chapter of Star Wars or something that leads into another trilogy. So we've got this is going to drop later, right? It's either JJ wrapping something up completely or there's another movie that comes after it. So it will reframe our position on JJ, which way that goes, because this will be the first time he's really wrapped something up that he started, because most of his other shows have been closed down by other creatives.
Yes.
But if this is just, if there's going to be a 10, 11 and 12, then this might just be JJ another entry and then he's off. And he doesn't really have to wrap anything up. So it will suggest we'll be coming out of this movie and this trilogy the same way we came out of The Force Awakens, with a lot of unanswered questions, a lot of stuff left hanging in the air that he hasn't felt the need to tie up for us.
Well, he's a terrific merchant for leading you down an alleyway, and then you turn around, he's just gone.
he loves that. That's not my favourite aspect of JJ's creative process, though. The mystery box, it's not my favourite aspect of it, because some of the stuff I would like to have definite answers on. I would like to have some closure on some of these things. And I think if he's wrapping up a trilogy, he might be forced to do that. And if he's not, if it's going on somewhere else, he might leave some of those story elements open for another, responsibly leave those story elements open for another storyteller.
If we're labelling this as a trilogy, it needs closure.
Yes, absolutely. But my concern would be, if there is another trilogy, there might be some room for, especially if it's going to be, like, if we spoke earlier about the amount of time that this movie might take place over. If this trilogy is going to be wrapped up really, really quickly, like narratively within like a year or something, the next trilogy might take place straight afterwards, which means we're dealing with the same characters straight away. We're not going to have decades worth of downtime between them, potentially. It might leave JJ free to just sort of say, I don't have any responsibility to this story element or that story element. We'll leave it up in the air and let someone else sort it out. And I think that for some people, that aspect of The Force Awakens was less than fulfilling when there was all those open-ended bits. Okay. That was a long one tonight.
Oh my.
Oh my. I think we're done.
Still here.
Yep. Right. Let's get this episode wrapped up. Have we had everything to say on the episode 9 of it all, gentlemen?
There's one more thing. I'm just kidding.
One more thing. Yeah, we will. I think we're probably due some big announcements from the Star Wars camp soon, because now everything's pretty much laid out, isn't it? Everything we know we're getting. We know who the director and the writer is of the last movie. We know the release date for the last movie. Last Jedi is wrapped and it's about to come out, and Solo, a Star Wars story, it's in post-production. Surely it's time now for Lucasfilm and Disney to stoke those fires again of anticipation. Reveal what that third Star Wars story will be.
You've just had your trailer, mate, and there's only 2 months till the films, till the reels start rolling. You might have to wait a bit longer.
No, I mean, really? What, before they announce any future films? Or
Possibly.
Really?
Yeah, they're going to be taking it easy now, going to post-production with Solo, and then thinking about New Year and so on. And that's when the think tanks will get together. You might not have much now.
Oh,
I might be wrong. I don't expect much.
You don't think they've already made the decisions?
Possibly, but they have meetings about when they'll release these decisions.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Yeah, they don't work the same way we do. We go, oh, do you hear about that? Right, tell everyone. They go, no.
When would be the right time in your estimation, do you think?
New Year.
The New Year, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So let Last Jedi have its day in the sun.
May, right? Yeah.
At the moment, apparently.
Last Jedi, the sun will set on the Last Jedi. You'll be getting ready for May allegedly with Solo. You'll get something, I reckon, end of Jan, February time.
Wouldn't that cut into the hype for Solo, which needs it more?
Not really, because it will give you a taster.
Yeah, but if you're talking about, are you talking about a new movie announcement?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Isn't that going to cannibalize the hype around Solo, which, like I say, needs it more than Last Jedi does?
No, I think Solo's had a great amount of correct and incorrect advertising for the last 6 to 8 months anyway.
It might be the similar dynamic now to the way Last Jedi and Solo have existed alongside each other in the news cycle without really cannibalizing each other's space too much.
To the hardcore fans, but then to the casuals, they haven't had any Solo stuff to reference.
No, I was just talking about this on the Daily today. I was saying that we're bound to sort of start getting teaser posters into theatres now with the Solo on the Starfield.
Yeah, and you're going to get more realistic stuff come New Year.
And that will start to be the general audience first exposure to this project.
Yeah.
They may have heard it sort of discussed in the background, certainly with all the controversy.
Mm-hmm.
But the teaser poster in theatres will really start to make this thing real. And I wonder if there is room for the ramp up to the Solo release to exist alongside the announcement of new projects. You know, those two news cycles sitting alongside each other. Because maybe they'd be best wait until the summer when Solo's done and we're 18 months away from the next Star Wars movie. They've got all that time to fill with announcements, and then at the next celebration they can start wheeling out directors who will subsequently be replaced by other directors.
Probably.
So cynical.
I didn't mean that. All right, let's wrap this thing up. Steve, you still awake?
Just.
Okay. All right, let's wrap this thing up then. Thank you very much for listening to Talk Star Wars again this week. Don't forget you can support us by becoming a member of our Talk Star Wars community and joining our Patreon campaign. So head to patreon.com/Talk Star Wars. A whole bunch of free stuff like priority release episodes of the podcast, an exclusive daily podcast, a VIP group on Facebook, great community of people over there, and a monthly prize draw and a whole bunch of other stuff. Facebook live sessions, you name it, we're doing it. That's at patreon.com/Talk Star Wars. And you can also leave us a 5-star review in iTunes, or as they want to be called these days, Apple Podcasts, and take advantage of our Ron Burgundy guarantee. So whatever you write in a review, we will read it as long as it's clean. So if you want to promote something or do something unusual, that's a place to do it. Email us your questions and comments to talkstarwarsinfo@gmail.com, or you can reach out to us on one of our many social channels such as Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So with that said, gentlemen, where can people find you between episodes?
You can find me on Wild About Nature on YouTube and Twitter.
Just look for Movie Score News. You'll find me.
Cool. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at RobWadeVision, and from there you can find everything else I do.
Sweet. You can find me at talkstarwars.co.uk, and I'm on Twitter at TalkStarWars. Head over to StarWarsCommonwealth.com and check out all of our partner shows. Tumbling Saber, Generation X-Wing, the Rogue Squadron podcast.
X-Wing.
X-Wing.
Generation X-Wing.
The Skyhoppers podcast.
Skyhoppers.
The Wonderful Nerd Room and San
San Diego ship.
And the Sean Connery impersonation podcast, which I shall be hosting solo.
Sure.
You'll find all of those at StarWarsCommonwealth.com. They're all worth your time. They are all first class. Okay, we will be back next week for another one of these very long episodes.
Oh,
have a good week, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Talk Star Wars is a proud member of the Star Wars Commonwealth Podcast Network. Find us at StarWarsCommonwealth.com alongside
The Tumbling Saber Podcast,
the Generation X-Wing Podcast,
Rogue Squadron Podcast,
the Skyhoppers Podcast,
the TSW Roundtable,
the Nerd Room Podcast,
and San Diego Sabres Radio Podcast.
Head to StarWarsCommonwealth.com and take your first steps into a larger world.
It's a wrap. It's a wrap.